you gave us in two forms, the same thing.
Steve, how are you?
Good.
Oh, no, it's different.
Oh, hi Josh, welcome back.
I'm sorry that I didn't get back to you today,
I didn't want you to.
but we will not discuss it.
Thanks. We're gonna meet in Marie.
That sounds good. I did. I was like nervous when I got. Oh, the Monday when I was. I guess the whole town sounded like it was calling everybody. I think they were annoyed about that.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it wouldn't be too long.
I might not have gotten that far down in my
Yeah,
email.
Terry
Maybe
sent it to
over
us.
She sent it to us.
Did you get it?
Yeah, I got it. But
Was
it's
it
late.
today?
It's late. It's late.
we
We'll
can
start
put her in-
working
we can put her
on it.
name on it, Terry.
Are you gonna
Yeah.
mention it tonight? Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll
Do you want
put
me
her
to
in
print
tonight.
it?
No.
again today. Yeah, with her sister. Yeah. She tell you they got lost? She tell you they got lost?
And if she
Yeah.
Went up to the third floor.
The rest of you don't get the original letter
Sign
until you
downstairs.
get it in the packet.
Secretary.
He's right.
From Torrington area.
I knew she
I have not heard that she just
wanted to make sure her
Morning,
name's on
she's has him coming up tomorrow.
Oh, I did hear that. Sorry, I thought you meant the first test.
She's there all. Yeah, does. I think we'll replace her with,
Thank you.
yeah.
Good evening. Today is Monday, July 17th, 2023. It's a little after 7 p.m. I'd like to call the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting to order.
Candace Bouchard.
Jonathan Morhart.
Candy Perez.
Josh Kelly.
Todd Archelashi.
Glenn Albanesius. Stephen Sedlak.
Linda Grappo?
Jack Borg. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A review of the agenda. Josh, you have a couple things?
Yes, I do have a couple of things. First, I would request that new business item C, which is 23-55, be removed from this current meeting agenda. There is a time when this should be discussed, but I believe that more discussion is needed by town staff and with members of the Board of Selectmen before that occurs. Beyond that, I do want to note that while the second executive session will be occurring tonight on the discussion on strategy and negotiations of contracts, the additional parenthetical that exists in the agenda is erroneous and not an accurate description of the discussion that will take place.
What? I don't understand that.
I wish for it to be struck from the agenda.
14?
Which one?
So this is 14A. I wish to keep discussion and on strategy and negotiations of contracts and strike,
The other half.
yes.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Sorry, I'm blonde.
Seeing nothing else, can I have an approval of our minutes from our regular meeting on July 3rd? Thank you, Jonathan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Oh, go ahead.
Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Unanimous? Item 5, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes or less and may speak once. Please give your name. Come on up. Please speak into the microphone.
Thank you.
Jennifer Perga, 378 East was here, I think about a month ago, or maybe a few weeks ago, and I was saddened and shocked about something that was said during the public comment, and so I wrote a response. There's a fine line between freedom of speech and hate speech. In fact, cases sometimes go to the Supreme Court. However, we all know hate speech when we hear it, and it cannot be tolerated. I want to live in a town where people are supportive of diversity and tolerate differences in race, religion, gender identity, sexual identity, political identity. What image do we want to project to our children and the world outside of Winsted? How will we get people to volunteer for our boards and commissions if we tolerate bullying during public comment? I implore you, the Board of Selectmen, and Town Manager Kelly to consult with a town lawyer or outside lawyers. Is it possible for a person or people to be censured from speaking due to their hate speech? Could this person or people submit their comments via correspondence instead of speaking publicly? I want to live in a town that's tolerant of all people, and I hope you do too.
Who's next?
Frank Oliveri, 108 Shore Drive. This is a continuation of some meeting about 9 months ago on the Highland Lake Catch Basin Program. And this is about the hood and hanger suggestion that I made a number of months ago. Under Ms. Perez's direction, myself and other members of the association did a survey of the catch basins. And what we've identified is 51 catch basins along all the roads perimeter to the lake are connected directly to the lake, to outfalls. And what we've requested to do was break them down into priorities. And priority 1 are all those catch basins that go directly into low water locations such as the coves and the coves around the lake. Where I live on 108 Shore Drive, also 148 East Wakefield, and also on the west side of the lake.
Can I just interrupt you for a minute? There's somebody at home saying they can't hear from that microphone. So you might have to really speak into it. It's on,
Yeah,
right?
pull it a little closer if you don't mind, Frank.
Otherwise they can't hear you at home.
Pull it even closer, like almost to your,
Speak louder than this.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, use your other voice.
Okay. What we found were 15 of these catch basins that correctly into low water areas of the coves, the different coves along the lake. Four additional basins go into what we call the narrow section of the lake, and 32 catch basins go into the Bay 1, Bay 2, Bay 3 sections. What I'm asking for today is, I understand the town got money from the state for the bottle cap or the bottle tax, what was it called?
Yeah, the nipper tax,
The
yeah.
nipper tax, okay. And what I would like to ask for under priority 1 and 2, which would be 19 locations, 19 that we transfer $10,000 from that fund to the Public Works budget line, so they can purchase 20 of the hoods. The hoods range from $300 to $500 a piece, and we start that program. And if that goes well, then we can do the category 3 locations. So I'm asking for your support on that.
Yep.
Sorry, Cheryl, I'll just check.
Is it on, Josh?
So it's on?
There we go. All right.
Hello. My name is Cheryl Heffernan McGlynn. I am from 61 Wetmore Avenue, and I'm also a business owner on Main Street. I'm here as a citizen and as a business owner. One of the primary concerns that we have, my husband and I both, is the parking and speeding issues in Winstead. The speeding in particular has become very dangerous. I don't think I've gone by a week without seeing an accident or someone hurt on Main Street. The west end of Main Street in particular, where our business is located, is a particular issue. Now, something needs to be done. The state of Connecticut recently passed legislation that allows towns to put crosswalks and speed cameras on a street that's a state street. They just need to get approval from the Board of Transportation. I'd like to know what this town is going to do to try to remedy the situation. I understand there's also a study that needs to be done about reconfiguring Main Street to maximize parking. This would be huge. We have a number of new businesses that are coming into the west end of Main Street. The parking is atrocious. There's no issue. We've had many customers come into our place and say, we would have been here yesterday, but we couldn't find parking. We would have been here yesterday, but we didn't want to park on the other side of the street and have to cross the street. One customer referred to it as playing a live game of Frogger, and that's what it is. I know when I get out on the left side, because we park on the left side, on the far side, I'm up against my car, waiting for the traffic to go by, whizzing by at high speeds, so I can get into my place of business. And this is what my customers are dealing with as well. I never see a police officer patrolling or stopping speeders. I don't understand why that's not happening. So this is an issue. The other issue is the care the town's taken to that area. There's a number of vacant, dilapidated buildings. Number one, 508 Main Street. 508 Main Street has been in consideration in one way or the other for the past 2 years. Meanwhile, it stands vacant, continuing to fall apart. You've got the ugly vacant lot there. What is happening? When are there going to be decisions made by this town? This is not good for business. It's not good for the community. It's not good for the tax base. This needs to be done. I also see on your agenda you have things regarding the Gilbert study. As you all know, I'm also on the Board of Ed. I am not here as a representative of the Board of Ed. I'm here as a citizen who pays taxes. I am in agreement that a good contract would be appropriate with Gilbert. However, that contract needs to give us some control since we are responsible for about 98% of their income. This town needs to have some say in that. I think their suggestion about having a collaborative agreement similar to what a couple other towns have is not a bad idea. But we also need to have arbitration because right now under the state statute, we have to pay whatever bill that is sent to us. And what I found particularly disturbing in this budget season where members of the WPS staff, the superintendent, the principal, gave up portions of their salary, just as our town manager did, in order to help balance the budget and get it passed. The next week, as I understand it, I believe, I heard a rumor that Mr. Segru is asking for an increase. He's not taking a cut. Gilbert has an offer to help ease the pain that WPS is going to have because of the budget cuts that were necessary in order to get it passed. So we need to have something go on. We need to be strong on this, and we need to make sure that we're looking out for the taxpayers as well as our students, because every time we get a bill from Gilbert that is in excess of what we can afford, it hurts the rest of the students. And we're losing staff. This is not acceptable. Thank you.
Good evening, Captain Stephen Kosinski, 105A Standard Avenue. I'm going to keep this as short as possible. One is I'm not going to go back with tit and tat and get involved with arguments with any of the selectmen here and whatnot. That's small, petty, inconsequential. I'm not going to get involved with that at all. It's below me. As far as I'm concerned, the only thing I'm involved with is the injustice that was performed in 2013. And I'll give you a visual. You got 5 Democratic selectmen in 2013 sitting here, and you have the population of Winchester, here. Of that, you've got veterans, you've got ex-selectmen, and you've got the population. this group of five, because they had an argument with few people that were critical of them, got themselves tight. And what they decided was to eliminate the 5 and 10-minute speaking public comment period and reduce it to a 3-minute public comment period. And they did that illegally, all right? One is what they did is they performed punishment against a small hand of critics. They just didn't like that. While criticism may be laced with sarcasm, or the issues that the people here in Winston have that they want to bring forward to this board, complaints, and yes, Jack, complaints about taxes, that's all part of what you have to handle. That's what you're here for. You are elected for that decision, and the people here elected you to do that. What happened in that time frame when they made that vote, you're not going to like it, they betrayed their oath of office. They betrayed the people of Winchester by reducing their given privileges and rights to speak for 5 and 10 minutes to an unusable 3 minutes. That was because they got themselves uptight, because they couldn't handle criticism at all. That's not right. That criticism is done at the state level, at the federal level, all the damn time. But here at the municipal level, oh no, we're going to have to punish the serfs, the vassals, the peasants. We can't allow them to have more than 3 minutes speaking time. And yet, it happened to me and this board. I'm sorry that you people had to be embarrassed because one selectman here decided to say, hey, Captain, you exceeded the 3-minute limit. Shut your mouth up. No, that's not going to happen because that is wrong. That is absolutely wrong, and I'm not going to get into a debate over this. I'm just going to say I'm going to keep pushing this relentlessly till election comes down. The people of Winchester are going to know who is their oppressor, who is trying to oppress them in their freedom of speech. That is what I put in the contract with this country as a veteran, and I went before 4 times, and I took the oath 4 times. One as an enlisted, one as a cadet when I entered the academy, second as when I got my 3rd mate's license, and another as a commissioned officer. I do not break that code of an oath of office that I took. No way, no how. All right? So with that, if you're upset with me, you don't like the fact that I'm trying to fight for the rights that has been taken away illegally, then you can say that. That's what I fought for. I put myself in that position, and so did every other veteran, that we did that to provide. We've had people here in this room raise the Nazi salute. I fought for that. Fine, go for it. That's part of your right to freedom of speech and everything else. That was a long time ago, but it was still impressive on a lot of people. So, I don't know what else to tell you, except I feel that you guys were all embarrassed by one selectman here, and she overrode Todd as moderator because she jumped over his authority. And that, too, is a wrong. Very, very wrong. And I'm not going to get into its specifics, but one last thing. I guess for some reason that particular selectman dislikes my lifestyle. I don't know what that is. And 2, if she was offended that I called her by her Christian given name, Althea Perez, and I was taught by my grandparents and parents and aunts and uncles to say that's a person's God-given right to be called by their given name. Well, you know, she can legally change it or eliminate it from her name. Anyway, that's it. I've had enough.
Josh, if I may. I don't think I've ever spoken in front of the Board of Selectmen before as a resident, not as town manager, but I want to put that hat aside and speak to you for my 3 minutes. The first thing that I need to address and that I think needs to be addressed is that no issue, whether you agree that an issue occurred or not, the question of hate speech is in no way baloney, in no way should be shoved aside, in no way should be dismissed, belittled, or in any way not left unaddressed. I believe that we as a community, I agree with the sentiments that Jen Perga shared with us earlier. I believe that as a community, we need to address that head on. We need to confront it when we see it. We need to explicitly state that we are not comfortable with it, we don't accept it, and we won't live with it. Beyond that, I want to address the issue that keeps coming to the Board of Selectmen over and over again, and that is the issue of 3 minutes versus 5 minutes. 5 minutes one time during the meeting, or 3 minutes 2 times during the meeting. One group getting 10 minutes to speak, or each member of that group getting their own 3 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, and then at the end of the meeting. I think I'm decent at math. I think that my financial skills and acumen have, proven that point over the last 2+ years now. And I can say with much certainty that 2 sets of 3 is greater than 5. I know that my rights are not being stripped in any way when we do away with a 5-minute speaking time once in a meeting and going to a 3-minute speaking time twice per meeting. It's not illegal. I have had conversations with the town attorney about this. We've had conversations with other towns about this. There are some towns, there are some boards that don't allow any public comment to occur. I'm not advocating for that or saying it's right. But what I am saying is that it is not illegal, and we need to stop pretending like it is. The last thing I want to say is that no member of this board has ever been, or from my perspective, will ever be embarrassments. They are model citizens in this town. That goes for everybody who's sitting up here. And I'm very proud to sit beside you at every meeting. None of you deserve to be belittled. None of you deserve to be spoken down to. None of you deserve to have lies spread about you. And I feel very strongly that from a nonpartisan perspective, these are true statements. And that's my job as town manager when I am sitting over there in that role, is to be nonpartisan. And I hope that you'll take these comments as such. For the record, I should have said at the beginning, my address is 103 Meadow Street.
Anyone else? Seeing no more public comment, item 6, new employee introductions.
I would like to invite our wonderful assessor to come on up and join us, Linda Velez. So Linda has been on the job has it been over a month now, Linda? Yes, it's been a while. It's been a while and the time's flown. And there's been a lot of work that's happened in our assessor's office, lots of changes that have occurred in that office over time, as many of you have heard. And Linda is the newest member of the town staff. So Linda, if you would be so kind as to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, tell us how it's going, and then I'll open it up for questions from the Board of Selectmen.
Well, first, hi everyone. My name is Linda Velez. I live in Waterbury. I have worked in the assessor's office in Waterbury, actually retired from there after 28 years. I started in tax, and in 1988, I'm showing my age, but I was there and I loved it and moved to the assessor's office and retired in 2015. They were kind of downsizing, and it was a bad time in Waterbury, so it was a good time for me to retire, and so I was able to take the benefits and work full-time somewhere else. So I worked in Naugatuck for a little bit in the assessor's office as well, and then I went to Watertown for 7 years before coming here. So I have a lot of experience in the assessment field with a little bit of tax background too. But it's very nice to meet all of you. The office is a busy office. I've met a lot of the townspeople who I just love people. I'm a people person, so I like to help others. But there is a lot of work to be done in the office. I'm just getting my feet wet with, you know, at the time I came in, a lot of reports are due, a lot of programs were going on, so getting myself settled in and doing some inspections and hoping to create a lot of money for the town. That's it. I have, I have 2 beautiful children. I have 3 stepchildren, just as beautiful, and I have 3 grandchildren, 2 step-grandchildren, 1 biological child, and I have a lovely family.
Welcome to the town.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Anyone on the board have any questions for Linda?
Don't come visit my house.
You're making some changes, and certainly you've come upon things that need to be done. Over the next 90 days, what do you think are the most critical issues that you need to address?
First is satisfying the state with all their reports that need to be filed, and making sure that the tax bills go out and they go out properly. Finishing up all the reporting. We're finding with the conversion, we went to a new system right before I came, not too long before I came, and I am familiar with that system, but it's the conversion always creates data problems and issues. So we're trying to correct those and move forward and implement the programs that need to be implemented in that system so that the tax office can function, you know, properly with her correct figures. So right now, my concern is getting the tax out ASAP, making sure that everybody got their benefits that they're supposed to, and the program is working like it's supposed to be working, cleaning up all the glitches and any map work. There's a lot of map work that's been let go or pushed to the side or not fully, thoroughly done completely. So I want to clean up that GIS as much as possible, and you know, just a lot of cleanup right now, making sure the tax bills go out and start picking up new businesses. There's a whole calendar and time here. The assessor's office doesn't have a lot of downtime. So I say in the next 90 days, it's getting those tax bills out and getting that money into the town. Since they went out late, they're going out late.
Linda?
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I guess that's the question I'm getting. I know it's on the website. Will the tax bills be out on time? People are still looking for their tax bills.
Yes, we're getting a lot of calls, and we're explaining to them with the, you know, the first referendum not passing, and they're very understanding because most of them are aware, and they say, oh, we forgot. So I let them know that just put us back a little bit, and we're assuring them that they will be out by August 1st and have until September 1st to pay them without any penalty.
Thank you.
Hopefully they'll go out prior to that, even a week, you know, but yeah, we're believing that they'll be out on
Thank you.
time. Thank you.
Anyone else? Linda, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
your
all.
Item number 7. Executive session for legal updates with the town attorney, taking with us the town attorney and town manager. Can I have a motion to go to executive session? So moved.
Second.
7:28, we'll be back shortly.
Yes.
All in favor? Gotta do your shopping last night, huh?
Yeah, I usually try to get it done a little bit earlier in the week, but
still get through, but I was like, oh man, that's kind of scary.
I know. We try to figure out, how's the best way to,
Nobody for East Main Street.
Is it, was that, like, that the norm? Oh,
hi. Awesome job.
You gotta do all the Is it okay if I go in and like do a work? I mean, are there alarms on or anything?
In your office?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't
I
need
can,
Yeah.
Cause I got a spreadsheet that I gotta work on, and I'm like, if I can knock it out now.
I've never seen these.
I chance to tell you I had to put Bentley down.
No.
Yeah, 23rd of June. He had an ear infection. We got that taken care of. He was running around like a puppy. And it's like came on diabetes 2 days. His kidney shut down. The doctor said even if we put him on insulin, he had a 10% chance of survival.
Was he 11 years old? So,
Broke my heart.
yeah, so no pups now.
Nothing. Right now, Cynthia just said that she had a bad right leg infection. She had to go to the hospital for 3 days. Day after tomorrow, I'm going for my 5th bladder surgery. It's been one thing after another.
That's too bad about that. 11 years, that's a good run though.
Yeah, Actually, I got him when he was 3.5 years old.
Yeah.
But he had a good life.
Yeah.
He was well taken care of.
I'm sure he was.
You were there, part of that EOS.
Cap, I'm not gonna say anything. We're on camera, it's being recorded.
That's fine. You're right. You're right. Absolutely correct. It should be. So anyway, everything fine with your family?
We're doing okay.
How was your 4th of July?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. We, very quiet, but that's the way we do it. That's the way we do it.
That's what I have. I got there half hour after. It would be appropriate for me to sign over. This one, I'm, a huge advocate of open space. Keep it, but this one. Yeah, keep it that way. But actually, that will be impressive acquisition for town. I said that one for they're almost 500-acre parcel that used to be that doesn't show anymore. That's kind of crazy. That's what that was. I wanted to do town forest. No, you hear me talking about it? Frank was down on board at first, but then as he heard more and more of your. Oh, no, he told me what the rain last Sunday night. I told Carol, I said, I'm sorry, I had a meeting, I wanted to talk for it. But after the Tuesday, after Monday morning, at this time, I was very worried, so. I did change my mind.
I'm on 5 minutes now.
Just somebody, this is what, this is what I like to see. This is what I like to see. Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah, that's how, we got back where
It's like Saturday afternoon.
so anyway.
they could sit there all day long, and give out thousands of
Oh, no, it's not.
next day, it's gonna start all over.
We are mom.
It's the people that come through.
We have business.
They're on the loop out there every day.
Tom's doing really well.
I think,
Well, yeah, but that's what you're driving.
You're just driving on jerks, and that's why you have to do something. That's what
if
you
you look, when you come from
crosswalk.
there's a 30-mile-an-hour stop.
And you gotta be careful when you cross, because even if you're in a crosswalk, you have to right away.
There's a town, I used to live.
No, there's a 30-mile-an-hour
Runs up
speed
and down
limit sign in front of here.
There's one town
And then another one down just
in Vermont.
before you get to
Drive
Vermont.
down and say,
And then nothing else all the way. That's what I said. But I mean,
And
but
every time we were out there, it was just nuts.
now these are the flashing.
And people stop speeding.
They're red. The red goes all around and it's just gonna. Well, the speed limit sign. I'm talking about the speed limit signs. You can get them with red lights on and they flash. And if you have one every, I don't know how many feet away, as soon as you don't see as soon as you're past that one, you should be able to see the next one, right? I'll spray my lemon tree.
It rains so hard.
You know what happens if the light from the,
And when you put it back on again,
it's a
I
speed
realized
racer,
it's
they line up
just
and
way
they
on
go,
the
yeah.
inside. I'm like, oh, well,
Speed.
you know, this was
The
really
worst
down,
part,
then I was watching.
right, I mean, and it's funny, because it happens day in and day out.
12, it's on June 30th.
100 times a day. But the 2 to 1 in front of our,
And they were saying about flooding, floodwaters in Winston, and it's in Oliver Avenue, I'm like, what? It must have been like. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, they're.
So that's the days it goes down, just a little people once in a while, just get them out.
You know, maybe I couldn't speed limit in New York State is gonna. You see lots of them, but the speed limit on the other side, you go to 35. There's no real power.
I know, well, what's,
Water will find a way.
what's really upsetting, and I'm not sure if it was in Russia or what it was in Vermont. They said they could see a car down below, its headlights were on, it was way below the water. And they didn't know if there were people in it. And I was like,
I could do anything but Friday.
I'm just glad I live in we're lucky we're neighbors. We live in Vermont. Good, good. Because they move and they're not. I don't know.
You tell me that.
I mean, Mold City, crying out loud, no wonder why I this. But, you know, that was, well, that was, it went back, you know, centuries.
This is working out well, I get to get some work done.
Well, when
Next time, bring coffee. Coffee? Yeah, I'll bring you, you'll get one place, box. Sure.
So how are you doing? Did Robin say we visited?
Yes, yes, she said.
It was like old home week. I went. Jose was there. Jonathan was there. Bill is always there, but and Jeanette was there. So it was kind of fun, and we talked about Melissa. Melissa. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just they were all like, "Oh, we miss you."
I can't, I just can't fathom that you were there.
I really did. It was a good gig. I said it when I took the job. I said, well, if the people are annoying or whatever, I can leave it because it wasn't my permanent job. Jose. Actually, it was the old store manager. who's not there anymore. He was the one. So Skylar, if you remember, we had a conversation. It was around the holidays, 2000. I don't remember it, but I dropped the ball. I was thinking they might, take on people for Christmas and they needed help, and I just didn't do anything with it. And I think like either January or February, I reached out. I said, "Are you looking for people?" Or like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I work full time, but I would be available for the third shift."
Right.
And they said, "That's perfect. That's what we need." So yeah, I worked for BJ's 6 months or something, and really liked it a lot. Like the kids that I worked with were great, and you just do your own thing. I mean, and I kind of took pride a little bit in making the store look really nice.
See, every once in a while over the years, Robin's been there, I think it's over 20. There's been a few instances, not many, where a group is kind of gelled and they're there to work and actually, took some pride in what they were doing, but not so much now. It's really...
It's hard when you're strapped with people, because then it's just stressful.
And the focus of the newbies is not what it used to be. So, but she's swerved into some kids that are just absolutely great. She kind of mothers them, gets the most she can. She's tired when she comes home.
All that.
I really do feel sorry for her. Sometimes she'll come home and spends time with the dogs, and 11:30, she's just zonked, absolutely zonked. But I will tell you, people love her.
Oh yeah, Robin's terrific. We bonded first time we met.
Yeah. She takes good care of that front end. She treats it like her.
She's like a great ambassador.
Absolutely, yeah. It's kind of amazing the way she gravitated to the store and their purpose and goals. She really adopted them as her own, and
Obviously she likes it. She's been there over 20 years.
yeah. And she gets into conversations with people that, she's like a mother, she's like a daughter, she's
Therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that. It's funny. No, they were great. And you know the story of how we met, because I had gotten the credit card for the gas. So it's happened to me and one other person, they said. For some reason, it just would not take the discount off. So every time I'd have to get the receipt, walk into the store, and I used to do the math for them too.
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, this is what I'm supposed to get back for money. Just write it down quickly.
Right.
And they check it and make sure it was correct. But it was just kind of a fun bonding thing.
Yeah.
Actually, Robin was the first one to help me, and then she kind of clawed me off on Skylar because she was always working behind me.
Did they ever get it squared away?
No, for that 3-month promotion or whatever, I just had to do it every time. And they were like, "Oh, we're so sorry." I'm like, "I don't care. It's not a big deal."
They've got I've got their new app, and they've got Express Pay on it. I don't know if you know anything about it, but you can, so you can actually load your card up, and you can scan each item and pay, and not have to go through the registers.
Really?
So it's super easy for me. I'm probably like you. I don't spend that much. Yeah, but I did it a couple times, and it's like I'm in there and out of there in like 7 minutes. I don't have to go through any of the. You get to the front, you show them the barcode, and out the door you go. But for whatever reason, it wouldn't work past 3 times. So I said to Rob, I said, "Why won't it do this? It was working fine." She goes, "Good luck with that." She goes, I said, "Can I call home office?" She said, "Good luck with that too." She said, "They aren't going to be able to tell you."
Yeah, probably not.
So I deleted the app, put everything back in, and now it's working again. So, but it's nice because, the coupons, she's always after me about making sure I do the coupons.
Yeah, Valerie is absolutely on it.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing we really appreciate with BJ's. I mean,
Um, 4 years ago, 4 years, I think it's 4 years now, just as a gag gift for Christmas, I got her a Costco's card. She opened it up. She looked at me with daggers. But
I've never even been to one. Everybody seems to like that.
she loves it now. We go to the one in New Britain and Waterbury, and
Should you have one in town? Should it be Corton, Costco?
I ask her every once in a while, what does Winstead need? She goes to Costco. Costco.
Probably do very well.
It would capture the whole northwest corner, but I don't know if it's enough for them. Are you up to speed on all that? Like market density and what?
Kind of. It depends on the business.
Because that's the thing, you know, you have conversations with people and they tell you they want this store or that store, and I try to process it in my head. If I was that company, are you going to get the traffic? Are you going to get the profit margin that you need to keep it here?
The one that I thought was a slam dunk and it kind of proved me wrong was moving Christmas tree. I thought that would have been a success for sure. I know the shops either Ledgebrook over at Plaza. And now of course it was resistance.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Like everybody loves it. Like that's a scare.
Right.
I don't get it. All over the shop.
And year round, you can go in that place and find stuff.
It's always fun to go.
Right. I'm shocked that that happened.
I am a little surprised. That's all right. I gave it to you.
Yeah, thank
You
you.
can look at it.
All right.
Yeah. See ya.
So you guys up next? I think so.
This is my first time coming before the board since when I got hired.
Yeah, but you had your intro, didn't you? Yeah, I remember that.
But that's 9 months ago.
Is it?
Isn't that crazy? Time was just going by so fast.
Yeah, it's. I'm glad they're doing this for you guys though, because it.
I didn't get applause. First time like, you got applause. I didn't get applause.
Well, I think it was a good night for applause.
So I bet you're happy not having to move the wetland speeding up, I'd say.
Yeah, Josh is gonna.
I think that's great.
Did you hear? Yeah, he's gonna do the meeting.
It's gonna be an easy meeting.
Yeah.
It's not. There's nothing controversial, so it's probably. I really appreciate him stepping up and being willing to help us, but it'll be easy. It should be out in an hour and a half.
Yeah, and I don't mind.
No, I know.
I really don't.
Well, you know, you've been through two that have been like 3-hour ones. It's
Right,
kind of-
right. It is what it is. It's just the work on the backside. He's very cognizant of
Yeah, he'll have the minutes done that night.
what the cost is.
I wish I had that skill.
Right. Yeah, and I don't.
I struggle.
And I never. Yeah, you have no idea.
Going back and reviewing it either from the YouTube or from the audio recording. Like, oh my God, I'm so bad at this.
And I struggle mightily with trying to condense and not lose sight of the the whole conversation and the underlying factors, and it's hard to. It takes a skill set that I don't have. And I think that's what the German.
Well,
It's
unless
just
it's very comprehensive, I get it.
Yeah. It's all good though.
Yeah.
It'll work out the right way.
Yep. We're definitely in the groove. We're feeling
Yeah.
really good. We had really good meetings today. Even just like the last 10 minutes we could catch Josh. At the end of the day, we got two kind of heavy issues.
Did he tell you about the Texan wandering?
Yeah, I got to meet him.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. We'll see.
That was because Josh was half standing in my office, and this guy was out in the hall, so I only heard Josh's side of the conversation, but then when the guy left, I saw him out in front of the building. He had his hat on and his blazer. I think
I
somebody.
guess he has a Litchfield connection though. Like he's local. He's
Oh, I'm
not-
sure there must be. Yeah. But he introduced himself as a Texas developer, Texan, whatever.
Yeah, I was shocked we could pull up the plans in a pretty quick machine. It's so hot. She got those within 5 minutes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god.
And did he
I don't know
know-
where to look in our bill?
Did I hear it right that does he know Joe Miller?
That's what I heard. I think Ted or Josh said. Yeah.
So you never know where that ends up, but the more those entrepreneurs know each other, you know.
I think that'd be great. Well, it's huge potential.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, better to have something to think and hope about than nothing, you know. Obviously, you'd like to see it come to fruition, but we'll see. Did they finish those apartments by you yet? Or no?
Yeah. The one that's sort of up the hill. There were people in those. You've seen the lights on
The one
at
in the
night.
back?
Yeah,
The
the
big
one
one?
that looks like a hotel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really?
Some people have moved in there. But yeah, the ones right here still have.
Still got the green, like,
And there's no windows. They're still open to the elements. But I don't think that's a bad. I don't think like you worry about it. I think it's
are
gonna.
there people there?
They have been working there pretty regularly.
Really?
So I'm not sure.
I would have thought that would have. Yeah, the place in back there is like, it's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because it's so on the down low, but I would love to know how many units went in there. Looks like they might be doing improvements in the lower part as well. I don't know if it's gonna be another building or just maybe amenities.
Is it, what kind of, is there,
No, I should reach out to Neil. Neil Hayes, the town planner. I haven't. I assumed it was affordable housing, but I don't know.
right. It's not a bad looking building, I mean,
It's tremendous.
it's
It's
just
appropriate where it was placed.
where it is, absolutely.
Condos
Yep,
around it.
yep.
Everybody's corner is kind of its own little, sort of with petals and
And if they wanted to hide it, they could hide it completely, you know?
Yeah, technically the plantings, I mean, they could.
Right.
It's the other thing that's funny is you don't really notice it. Coming down 202, when you look to the left, you'll notice it. 44, you get it when you're at the light, but it's really not that
No.
intrusive. I think
If you were
they did a
coming
really nice job.
from Canton up towards us, you wouldn't even know it was
Right,
there.
you would notice it.
And I often wondered how you got to it. I think you told me that.
I thought there was a little back way by the,
It's your golf course,
There's
yeah.
not. There's no connection there. It's literally off of Cherrybrook.
Really?
179.
Yeah, because I kept driving towards Canton, like looking over the golf course and trying to see. But it looks like there's condos down there already. Yeah.
Yep.
I said, well, maybe they're connected.
No, I'm surprised they didn't. The town didn't want them to, but they're not physically connected with a driveway or any kind of access way to that building.
How many units would you say in that building?
I guess.
A couple hundred?
Really don't even have a guess. It looks huge. It's hard to tell from, you're just driving by.
The plant over here, I think, had
That's what they're doing, they're asking for camps to give them money to finish the project.
30, maybe 30 or 40. I think it was 10 or 12 to each floor. And that building in Canton dwarfs that. But I don't know how big the apartments are.
I don't know that either. It's kind of neat.
Good for Canton, too.
Yeah, I think it was fought originally to have a development there.
Things in life, right?
Actually, we were in town when that went through, but I just didn't really pay attention to it. But I'm glad it got through.
Canton's redefined itself. When, you may remember, where the shopping mall is, used to be a golf course.
Yeah. So my brother-in-law's from town. He's a little bit younger than me, but like for that generation, like he grew up in town.
Yeah.
That hurt.
Oh, like, I'm trying to think of Lowell family, I think, pretty much owned it. And it was just a quintessential little community golf course. My dad, that's where he taught me to play.
Okay.
And it was just a wonderful, wonderful respite, you know, to go and then to have that happen. I'm thinking in the world that we live in, how exactly did Canton do that? But it's a successful investment.
It is. And then placement on 44 is appropriate for sure. And they did get a lot of open space out of it. So.
Yep.
Neighborhood probably has some. I can imagine at the time they were like freaking out.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, I don't know any of the details, but to take that big a plot of property, which really kind of defined Canton.
But I can totally relate because where I'm from in Colchester, Champlain, golf course is the same thing. Like, really lose that.
I think the upside is the revenue has helped.
I told our first selectman, sort of joking with her for a little bit, I said, "You're very welcome. You know, we're taxpayers who don't have any children in the system."
You mouth those words.
Yes. I was kind of kidding with her. She got it.
Did you get along with them?
Yeah, she's not anymore. I'm not even sure who her mom is, but I did like her. Yep. And then for years before that, it's terrible. Yeah, I can't remember the names anymore.
How long have you guys been there?
We've been in town 17 years.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't know that. Where were you?
Valerie bought a condominium in Utah, Simsbury. And so we moved in together. We were there for a little bit, we looked for 3 years for a place that we could afford. We really wanted to be on that side of 44 along the center. So we were waiting. And it's funny, the house that we really wanted sold. And then the woman who bought it, which is where we live now, she thought it was like a retirement community. We live in a planned unit development, it kind of looks like that. And when she said it was a lot of young families and kids, she's like, no, it's not for me, she's from the country. So our house came back on the market.
So you got what you wanted.
So Valerie got the house that she wanted.
That's destiny.
I wanted wood stove and a front porch. That's the only two things I asked for. I didn't get either. I had to build the front porch.
What about no wood stove?
No wood stove yet.
Can you have one if you?
If we plan on shifting and stuff, we could. Things have to happen. If we're gonna do a first floor bedroom when we get older, if we're gonna stay, then I would kind of like consider it as part of that. But I also wouldn't have access to the wood unless my dad paid for it.
Now, is your place connected to, or the individual?
They're individual single family homes, but we are considered condominium.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's 39 units in the neighborhood, I think 10 or 4.
But no shared walls or anything?
No. We all have our own yards to maintain. There is some common ground that the association.
Do you mow your lawn?
I do, but I don't have much lawn. I'm not a fan of it. Every year I get a little more. That's so many pollinator plants from the Northwest Conservation.
So how much is not allowed?
I can finish our lawn in about 10 minutes. But we don't have any kids, so we don't need a play area or anything like that, so. Yeah, it's very limited on. My neighbor, I was spoiled for a while because we had, Christine was older, and she had a service dog, and Pat, who's the landscape, would always do most of my lawn with her, Christine. And the other side, I had a neighbor who was meticulous about the lawn, he didn't like the dandelions and stuff, so he would mow. In the back though, it's always in shade, so we had moss. So it's like, I have like nothing to do. Valerie says I'm lazy. I'm like, no, it's nature. It's natural.
So, you can do anything you want inside, outside you have to maintain certain.
The weird thing about the outside is we just have to get permission. So I do want to do bay windows at some point. I pitched it way back, and they said just give us an architectural rendering. As long as it meets all the setbacks.
How many square feet?
1,300. We're not a very big house.
We're 22, 2 floors, and if I don't hear it, it's too much. Too much to clean. Too much to clean.
Now, do you have kids, right? But nobody's home.
No, my boys are home. Well, semi. They are splitting time between girlfriends and our place. It is what it is.
Just a place for their stuff. I had that for 100 years.
We're the hotel.
My dad had to sell our original house to get me to move out.
Well, yeah, it's funny because Robin always says, it's time for you to move out. And it is, but, I say, just be glad you know where they are and what they're doing. She reluctantly agrees, but now when they're spending more time with us, she's more curious about what's going on. Typical mom, I think.
Kids in their 20s?
Jeffrey's 33.
Okay.
My daughter's 31, and my youngest is 27.
It's around my niece's age. So I have a niece named Serena, who's my favorite person on the planet.
What's her name?
Serena.
Oh, I love that name.
She's a good kid. She's my gypsy. She lives down in Philly, won't drive. She doesn't have her driver's license.
Doesn't need one probably, right?
She doesn't. So I give her a lot of credit. She figures out how to ride. But she's very funny. She's kind of mostly around waitressing. She's at PARC, which is a pretty high-end restaurant in downtown.
How'd she land there?
She didn't have that right away. She was working some random coffee houses.
Did she go to school down there? Or?
No, she tried college. It wasn't for her. But she just moved down there, and I give her a lot of credit. She moved down on her own, but now she has a fiance who's also not from Philly, but just has other men down there. They're considering moving, and I'm like, oh, you keep getting thrown really right away. Oh, really? They don't want to move to New England.
Do you go down and see her?
I go when I can. Yep, and she'll go camping with me. Her and Max. Yep, they'll meet up a few times. Camping. Each have to drive over 2 hours. That's awesome.
How old is she?
She'll be 29 this year. I tell her because she's very lucky, and then there's a break, and then all the other kids, I was old at that point. I said, you got me out in front, you were just 22. And I had all that energy. So I spent a lot of time with her, pretty much right up until she was about 10 years old. My sister was a single mom.
Right.
Yeah, so Serena was being
You're one of how many?
just the two of us, my sister and I, and then my dad remarried, so I have 2 step-siblings. Abby lives in Oregon. She's very cool.
Really?
She's like 7 years younger, I think. And then Josh is my brother, who is Karina's age, so they're 3 years younger.
So are you?
I'm the oldest.
Yep. So you got all the wisdom.
I have all the wisdom, I guess. It's funny, we're all very different. Like, I don't know. I think I'm normal, but whatever. And
Isn't that always the way it is?
Josh is very straight-laced, quiet, shy. He's a super nice guy. Karina's kind of outspoken, whatever. She's been around high school.
Question, do you have any idea how long the other items are gonna take once they ever have an executive session in the middle of a hearing? Like your report, the finance director's report, no idea how long those are gonna take?
It's gonna be a long night tonight.
What's the hell to take an executive session in the middle of a meeting?
They got another one after this.
I know.
Well, they try to get the attorney in early so they don't pay There's fees to sit here
Yeah.
till the end. So, but once they get in there, they take advantage of the time. I feel your pain, but
I'm sure you do.
I have gone down to my office, tapped my fingers and my toes for an hour and a half.
Yep. And then Abby's kind of like my hippie sister.
Oh, really?
She's super nice, very cool. So, I guess you can consider her first married too. Moved out from the West Coast. She has a son named Tom. His wife's Paul. He's a coach. And then I actually have three kids at this point now.
Really?
Kelly on the outer side had a daughter. So I will be just crazy. So I have 9 kids.
Yeah, my wife always wanted to be a grandma, but I don't know if it's gonna happen. Not for the boys, maybe my daughter, but the boys.
It's hard. You gotta be with someone who's a little baby crazy. Because I think Valerie and I would have liked to have a kid, but neither of us were like, okay. The other one would have been like, okay, it happens to us. I like being, I said, being on those kind of definitely has perks. Let's check it out.
Oh, it's cold in here.
Yeah, I know. I gotta keep you up there.
Good evening, we're back from executive session at 8:14 PM. Moving on to item 8, town manager's report.
Thank you very much, Todd. My apologies, I'm just pulling up some of my notes now. So we had a couple questions, and I'll go ahead and start by addressing the questions that were posed during public comment, because I actually have a couple notes that are written here. I am very aware that there are a number of buildings along Main Street especially that are eyesores, that are items that need to be addressed. I want to promise everybody, not just here in the audience, but anybody watching at home, that they are on our minds. We're going to have some conversation later about other buildings in town that could be either used to a higher level or just used in general, and Main Street is no exception. So more specifics on that in the very near future. I am doing my best with our town staff to try and find money for a Main Street study. There's been so much discussion around how do we slow down traffic and how do we get more parking. If you can solve those two problems on our Main Street, I think that is a huge stride forward for our town and the development of our town and the maintenance of our town. It is very difficult to try and find the amount of money that we need to conduct a study, and just so everybody's aware, State DOT, we've had many conversations with members of State DOT. They are willing to consider changes to Main Street, changes that of course will have to come at the town's expense because the state isn't interested in making needless, from their perspective, needless changes to Main Street. But in order to do that, we need to conduct a traffic study that incorporates really an engineered design for what a new Main Street could and should look like. So is that nose in parking? Is that dividing the street so that you have kind of a throughway on one side and parking on the other? There are lots of different ways that you can move forward with this, and we are seeking grants for that so that we're able to complete the study without that money needing to be levied from taxpayers. But it is very difficult. There are not a lot of opportunities right now for grants in that area. That being said, one of the areas where we do have an opportunity to possibly get some money down the road is with the Safe Streets for All federal grant program. We did finish that grant application since the last time this board met, and when you last met, we had some conversation about moving that grant forward. And thank you all for voting to submit a letter of support. I know that the mayor did sign that on your behalf. And we're now finalizing a connectivity grant application. That's 100% funding for a project related to community connectivity to some extent, that up to $800,000 with the state of Connecticut, and I'm very optimistic that we'll have that in by the end of the week. It's due at the end of the week, and we'll be able to move forward and have further positivity and further money coming into our community. Beyond that, I know I've mentioned this before. We'll have some, and I'll save greater discussion for later, but we will discuss the creation of a historic district commission or a historic commission in general to oversee grants and historic district commissions that are needed for such grant applications in the future. The town is currently in the process of hiring a purchasing agent, and we are seeking police officers. We do have a number of public works positions that are currently vacant, and we will be posting for in the near future. So if you know somebody, especially on the police side and the public works side, who you believe is a good fit for the town employment, please make sure that they know that we are seeking people. Have them reach out. We are looking for those hires in short order. Beyond that, the town is in the midst of planning its next job fair, which is to be held in October. And certainly I know members of the EDC are here. They might feel like speaking to that, although it's not technically on the agenda, so I'll withdraw that. Don't talk about it. We'll talk about it later. The Mountainside Drive request for proposals did close today. My apologies, there is a little typo in my report here. It closed today. We have one proposal that came in. That is public information, and I will be sharing more specifics with the Board of Selectmen later, and we'll move forward with consideration on that proposal, whether the board wants to move forward with it or not. We have some other conversations that will be coming up around the different revenues that the town has been earning, including through the nipper bottle deposit tax that has been imposed by the state. So be on the lookout for that in the near future. And I do want to let everybody know, members of town staff are undergoing training in various areas, including customer service, general team building, Excel, Microsoft Excel, you name it. We're trying to make sure that our staff is continuing to be well-rounded and challenged to always be better. So that is pulling some members of the town staff out of the office. If in the next couple of weeks you see that different offices are a little short-staffed, please know it's primarily because we have these training sessions. I will make sure that the Board of Selectmen is aware. There should only be 2 sessions where a significant number of people will be out all at once, and they should be a few hours or less in each instance. But I will make sure that it's well known if a department will be closed for any period of time. So beyond that, we have 2 regular board meetings in August, no holidays changing those dates, and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Last meeting, we had mentioned again a surcharge on the nipper bottle.
Yep.
And I asked for the grand total that we've received. I know you've had a lot on your plate, but maybe next time, could you give us the grand total?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And before any decision is made, certainly you'll have a by-the-minute total of what's in the
Thank
bank
you.
account. No problem.
Josh, I had mentioned to you in the past, I don't know how it still sits, once in a while there's software program training.
Yep.
Like Excel. That's open to us here too.
Absolutely. It is open to you.
So would you kind of give me a list of what's open?
I will.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yes. Road update, since the last onslaught, do we have any updates on the conditions of the roads? Do you have anything from Public Works or the emergency?
As of last night and into this morning, we had 3 roads out. I know as of by tomorrow morning, we should have Pratt Street open. I know that was a concern for many folks today. A number of the dirt roads, I know, especially as you get out towards Winchester Center, were more severely impacted, of course, than our asphalt roads. I know that there was some significant impact over on Beach Street earlier in the week. I don't know what that impact was like in the area.
Nothing there except for a drain looks
Backed
like
up.
it needs to be replaced or
Got
something,
it.
rather than that. So will you be communicating this on the town's website for an update, or, like Pratt's open, or, I don't know?
Yeah, and I apologize. I was booked by the minute today. This is my first day back after a little time away, but I will make sure that that's communicated out.
Police, the police notification on Facebook regarding arrests. We haven't had that in I don't know how many months.
Okay. And I did see your email. My apology, it went to a different account, but I did see that later today, and I will make sure that it's addressed.
Candy?
Mentioned about the lake.
Yeah, that would be great, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
so, just so you know, for the public out there, there's been some questions about Highland Lake and the swimmability of it. Torrington Area Health works with our recreation department to do bacteria tests during the summer. They do a test twice a month. They did a test last week, and they're going to, at the request of the town, do a test tomorrow, just to check and make sure that the water doesn't have a lot of bacteria in it. As you know, Highland Lake acts somewhat like a retention pond in some ways, so everything is running into it, and there's a lot of water that came in. A lot of it with forest materials with it, so we think everything will be okay, but just in case, so those tests have been run. We haven't heard, the town hasn't gotten the results from Torrington Area Health from last week, which is a good thing, because usually they notify you right away if something is wrong, and then they are doing that additional test tomorrow.
Josh, one street I want to ask about. Brook Street, there was not only a collapse of a water drain there or a water main, but the street is over flooding, and I know a neighbor is getting backwater filled in their cellar. You know what's going on there?
And my apologies, I said Beach Street and I meant Brook Street.
Oh, you meant Brook Street.
I did mean Brook Street, so there you go. So I am not aware of the specifics around who's getting what kind of help in terms of basements, in terms of what our next steps are on the drain. I had about 2 minutes today to talk to the Director of Public Works because he was spread so thin. His report to me was that this is going to take weeks to repair the damages that have been done, not days. So, but everything's being tended to. I know that they're triaging. They're trying to focus on the worst areas, the areas where they can help the most first, and then they'll move on to some of the lesser issues or issues that, aren't so easily fixed, are persisting.
One of the other towns on the TV news tonight was asking people to send in reports of damage in their roadway, driveways and stuff, because they wanted to get a handle on how much damage was in the town, so that when they submitted, I think it was Bristol for when they submitted for federal emergency relief.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's something that we should be doing, is collecting the amount of damages and where. And I don't know if there'll be a program that comes out that, we could apply for.
That's usually what happens when they determine a state of emergency. The town manager or the first selectman or mayor or whatever, and then they ask everyone for it, but
We didn't declare
like
state.
Norfolk and Bristol's
Yeah.
crazy.
They declared states of emergency,
Right.
but they were also collecting information from people.
Other questions? Moving on to item 9, Finance Director's Report. In lieu of our Finance Director being out, Josh?
Thank you very much. So this will be a very brief report because there's not much to say. With this coming fiscal year, we are not even one full month in, so we don't have much in the way of expenditures to report. We are currently making sure that we have all the POs and requisitions filled out so that for our standing orders for things that we know we're going to need regularly or in great bulk over the course of the year, so that everything's all set up and the system's to some extent automated. And beyond that, we have tax bills that were being proofed today. So I am very hopeful that we will have the tax bills out, just like Linda said earlier, a little bit in advance of the beginning of August, so that everybody has plenty of time to review those and get them in before the due date of September, or the final date before any kind of interest is added on of September 1st. So that's this current fiscal year. The prior fiscal year, we are still collecting all of the invoices. This will, as we've discussed at prior meetings, this usually takes 2, maybe a little bit more than 2 months to complete. So we're about 3 weeks into that process. Right now, we are, with our total revenues, 101% collected. So that means that we were able to take in between a collection of taxes and our municipal aid, we received more than we had budgeted for last year by 1%, which is nothing to sneeze at. That's a good thing. And beyond that, we have 95.38% of last year's budget expended or encumbered to some extent. So we are very comfortably under the budget. We are not near that line. I don't believe that we are going to cut it close, even as more invoices and other related items come in and we continue to make expenditures out of last year's budget. So we're in a very positive position. And a number of capital improvement, of course, it's the summer, so we had a number of capital improvement expenditures that occurred over the course of June. The most significant of which was around $700,000 towards the Whiting Street renovation to close out that project. Another $200,000 related to the Taylor Brook Culvert project, and a series of other smaller expenditures to the other various work happening around town.
And the Greenway,
And the Greenway.
the finish of the Greenway.
Yes. You're right. So my apologies. That was first on the list. Yep. Grand list revaluation, Greenway, Case Avenue Bridge, various items related to the bond. Those are annual road maintenance. Those are all parts of the expenditures that were made in June.
Any questions for Josh? Moving on to 10, correspondence. Anyone have anything?
I can discuss this more in detail when we get to item 12A, but I do want to make sure that all members of the Board of Selectmen are aware that communication was received today from the members of the Civil Service Commission, and that has been provided for you here.
11, boards and commissions. Steve?
Thank you, Todd. You don't have in your package the information, you'll have it for the next meeting, but we do have a letter of interest and an application from Esther Dew to be a member of the Soldiers Monument Commission, and so we will begin the vetting process for her and have action at the next meeting. Two appointments this evening. One, I'd like to move that we appoint Joseph Holcomb as a member of the Recreation Board, his term to expire in April of 2028.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
I'd like to move that we appoint Anne Marie Holland as a member of the Recreation Board, term to expire in April of 2027.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Candy. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
And we have one reappointment. I'd like to move that, to reappoint Keith Wilson as a member of the Torrington Area Health District, his term to expire in April of 2026.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
And as usual, we continue to welcome volunteers, people who are interested in serving on our boards and commissions, to contact the town manager's office, and you'll be considered. That's it for now, Todd.
Thanks, Steve. Item 12, unfinished business. 23-53A, consider and possibly act on the proposed amendments to Ordinance 12, Civil Service Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have too much to share tonight. This is an opportunity really for the board to have discussion, if they so choose. This is the second meeting out of 3 meetings that are needed in order to make a change to an ordinance. This is per our charter. And you have both the proposed ordinance change removal in front of you, as well as a memo from me, which has been amended slightly to make sure that a little bit more information was presented in some areas. All of this information about the change to the Civil Service Commission has been posted on the town's website under the Board of Selectmen's page. There's actually a unique subpage just for this item. So anybody who wishes to learn a little bit more about the process can go there to learn more. It includes a link to the ordinance itself. It includes a link to all memos related to this proposed change and so forth. So it's a one-stop shop for information. There is also included in your packet, which was included in the last packet, a memo from our labor attorney, Bill Ryan, outlining what steps are needed to be taken in order to make any change related to having a civil service commission or not. That has been reviewed by our town attorney, Kevin Nelligan, and has been corroborated. He agrees, Kevin Nelligan, with the statements that are made therein. So, just to go over a few items for members of the public who either did not watch our last feed or who were not in attendance at the last meeting. The proposal on the table that I have brought forward to the Board of Selectmen is to remove Ordinance 12, Section 12, I should say, which relates to the Civil Service Board, which is a board that follows various state statutes to help oversee the town's hiring practices, and specifically related to the town's hiring on a merit basis. So the town, by town charter, has a merit-based system. We hire people on the basis that they are the best candidate for the position, and the Civil Service Commission is was brought in at the time by the Board of Selectmen. An ordinance was adopted, this is back in, I believe, 1991, to oversee that process. There are lots of ways that different organizations, whether they be municipal governments or otherwise, conduct their hiring processes. We are the smallest town in the state with a Civil Service Commission. The next smallest town is Trumbull, which has a population of, I believe, upwards of 35,000 people. That puts us in a position where we are working with a system. This is a system that's typically used by much larger organizations such as New Haven or Waterbury. We're a very small organization trying to compete with organizations that are large and can pay more and can attract more candidates, using a system that is overcomplicated and creates a significant amount of administrative burden. So I've gone through all of these items. You can read specifics as you go through on some of the reasons why I've brought this proposal forward on the town's website, as I've stated. But just to go over a few, again, for the members of the public here and that are watching, this adds a significant amount of time onto our process in town. Just like I said, we are a very small town that needs to be able to move nimbly in order to attract the best candidates and in order to work well within, especially the current labor market. And we are put through administrative burdens that can add not just days or weeks, but instead months, multiple months in some cases, just to review a job description. There are other instances where there have been multiple months required just to iron out whether actions that needed to be taken in order to hire an individual immediately have been pushed off for multiple months to a point where we've not been able to actually hire the person that we intended to hire. The Civil Service Commission rules and book are very thick, and they are contradictory to each other. There have not been a lot of changes made in the last several years, at least as far as I'm aware, to try and iron out those contradictions. There are instances where, for example, there's one passage that explicitly allows for certain appointments to be made by the town manager, and other sections that specifically countermand those types of appointments from being made. And beyond that, we have some opportunities going forward to strengthen the way that we do business. Right now, like I said, the Civil Service Commission uses the state of Connecticut, basically state statute, and follows various state statutes with a few other rules and rulings that it has added to its rule book over time. We now have policies in place that have been reviewed by the Board of Selectmen that are stronger, have explicitly stronger nepotism rules than anything found within the civil service rules that would be implemented in the event that this ordinance changes. Specifically related to a specific example related to time. We had word from our previous chief of police in November of 2022 that we were moving forward, or that he was moving forward with stepping away in his retirement. It wasn't until late January, early February that we finally had the opportunity to move forward, and we got the go-ahead from the Civil Service Commission to proceed with this hiring process, adding months to a very cumbersome process and putting us in a position where we had to appoint an interim chief of police, where we would not have had to do that, and we would have been able to potentially hire a new chief of police before our prior chief had stepped away, in the event that we did not have to go through these additional processes. So another disadvantage that I would like to point out that I did not bring up at our last meeting, and I think it's really important for the public to know. Members of the Civil Service Commission, as our ordinance stands, are appointed by the town manager. The Civil Service Commission was created as a check and a balance on the hiring practices of the town, and yet the hiring authority for the town, as it currently stands, is the one who appoints the members of the overseeing body. I don't think that's right. I think that the way forward to make sure that there's proper oversight is to have good, solid policies and procedures in place, which we've already done, and we have adopted months ago at this point in time. And we have an oversight mechanism that actually puts pressure on somebody in the hiring seat to make a good decision. And what better leverage to have over someone, I hate to put it this way, but than their job. Someone in my position should have a check and a balance from the Board of Selectmen who could make decisions about the hiring and firing of a town manager, as opposed to a Civil Service Commission, which at most is going to alert the Board of Selectmen to something that they could already have oversight on. There are many concerns, and I could go on certainly, that I have with keeping the civil service procedure. And I know that there have been some concerns raised related to the removal of the Civil Service Commission. But I want to go on record making sure everybody knows we have adopted these rules. We are addressing the concerns that have been brought forward, and we can build a hiring system that is superior to the one that we have now, that's actually able to bring in more quality candidates faster to make sure that we are serving the town to the best of our ability. So I will leave it at that for now, so that members of the public here have an understanding of where this proposal is coming from, and leave further conversation up to the Board of Selectmen.
Any questions for Josh? Candy?
Yeah, just from the board, I'd like to say the Civil Service Commission has always worked really hard. I think it's important to recognize that their work has, from each of them, has been very good. They've worked diligently and worked hard at all of this. The rules that they're working within and the policy book was created, a long time before many of the members were there. But so this is nothing regarding the people that sit on the commission, Civil Service Commission, but it is about the Civil Service Commission process. So one of the things that I think would be good for us to do for the next meeting is to have the personal policy book again. Specifically, the part that seems to be what we hear about the most is the part about hiring family and friends. I think when people think about civil service, it's always about, well, you're going to hire your buddy. We don't want that to happen. We're going to hire a family or friend. So we want to make sure that that piece of the policy book is that you have that, for us the next time, including what would be the remedies if existing policy is violated. I know you wrote the policy book, but what would the remedy be if there was a violation by a department head or by the town manager in that policy book if that piece had failed? Because we do know that, the other parts of this from the past were the influence by Board of Selectmen over town managers to do certain things. And hopefully we've left all that way back in the way back days. But in the policy book for personnel, I think some of those things should just be looked at in terms of what would the remedy be if it was violated.
I'd also like to state that if any resident is looking for any ordinance changes, that we have a button called legal, and it's identified there, and it outlines the exact meeting dates. So if you did make this meeting or the July 3rd meeting, you can meet the next meeting. But I also think what's important is that you say the information's at the selectmen's area, but there's no link to that in this legal notice, because it's a legal notice. But how are they to know where the details of the ordinance are? I think we should, if there is a legal notice and there's a source of information, there should be a link in that legal notice to where it is documented. I'd
That's a great
also
point.
request that the chairman's letter of the civil service of July 17th be posted along in the selectmen's area so that residents can see their response and there's response to this and their opinion of the change.
Other comments? So I'll just end this section here. Josh spoke earlier about the openings we have in the police department. We currently have 2, a third opening will be happening shortly. And there's a couple other officers that are within a year of retirement. So that's up to 4 or 5 openings that we could have. If you go to the state of Connecticut webpage, there are currently 48 municipalities with multiple police officer opening jobs on that page. And then they also send you to another link for police jobs in Connecticut, which has 145 openings. I agree the Civil Service Department and Commission has done their best and tried to get us the best candidates. But with the openings that we currently have and will have in the future, we need to move faster to get the best candidates. And I think a hiring procedure laid out is probably in the town's best interest. Moving on to unfinished business B, discussion on the 2023 State Department of Education report regarding Gilbert School funding.
Thank you very much, Todd. We've had the report for quite a while. I hope you've had a chance to review it. The first 5 pages or so are a good summary of what was done. And I've highlighted some of the information, and I'd like to just go through it to kind of bring us up to date and maybe give the public a chance to hear a summary of what this is about. I'm sort of cherry picking sentences. I'm going to skip around a little bit, so it's going to be hard for you to follow, but I just want to lay out what the issue was in the first place. It was the main concern that arose, which is frankly a long-standing one and not unique to the Gilbert School, is the lack of control Winchester has in determining the tuition rate and the corresponding impact that it has on the Winchester Public Schools and conversely on the town of Winchester budget process. So that's where we started out last fall. That's the issue that we wanted addressed. We presented it to the legislature through our representative, and the legislature kicked it over to the State Department of Education, and this is the report that we have as a result. The Gilbert School is one of 3 endowed academies in the state, along with the Woodstock Academy and Norwich Academy. A study was done on several schools and school systems. Starting with Woodstock Academy and the Woodstock Board of Education and Pomfret School, which also sends students not only to the Woodstock Academy, but also to Killingly and to Putnam. So the system of payment of tuition with those schools was made and documented. And then also a study of the Salem Board of Education, which sends students to the East Lyme Board of Education for its high schooling.
this was highlighted that this is the case where a specific methodology is used in the calculation of tuition to be assessed to Salem for educating the school district students. And the state has recommended to us that a similar kind of agreement be made between the Winchester Board of Education and the Gilbert School. Currently, there's no such agreement in place. Just want to skip to the end here in terms of summary, and then make a motion for us. It concludes the cooperative agreement in place between Salem and East Lyme is notable because it includes a specific methodology for calculating tuition. This model is the best practice and one that other similar entities may wish to replicate. And so I would like to place a motion for discussion on the floor. I move that we support the recommendation of the State Department of Education that the Winchester Board of Education and the Gilbert School enter into a long-term legal agreement that provides for a specific methodology for calculating regular and special education tuition. And I would look for a second to that motion.
I'll second it for discussion.
Thank you, Jack. Discussion? Who wants to go first, anyone?
I'll go.
Okay.
I wasn't going to go. I wasn't going to say anything about this. This is now in the purview of the Board of Education. This is not the purview of this board. When we tackled the issue, we were specific about its Connecticut General Statute 10-34 and asking for a remedy from that. The contract issue is for the Board of Education to decide, not for us to decide.
Right.
And I think that's up to them. We talked about it last year, that's for them to continue. I don't think it's for us to I won't support the motion.
Well, the initiation came from the Board of Selectmen 2 years ago.
Right, and the initiation came because of certain things that happened that affected the taxpayers, and affected the taxpayers in our budget. And 10-34 allows for those 3 endowed academies to set tuition regardless of what happens on the other side at budgets. We had a budget fail this year, and there was reductions. There have been surprise bills in tuition. And you, as a chairman at that time, sat there and gave a bill to the Board of Education that was above what was in the budget. And I think that's what we were trying to talk about, was the underlying structure for taxation and where money comes from, not whether or not the Board of Ed and the endowed academy have a contract. That's the Board of Education's responsibility. And I think that at this point, like I said, I was planning not to say anything here, and I think that the issue is with the Board of Education now.
It is with the Board of Education, but if we don't make a recommendation, does this just sit on the shelf and gather dust?
Well, our initial requirement and what we were hoping to gain was arbitration, and that's now taken off.
No, it's not taken off. As a matter of fact, the report does suggest that arbitration mediation be considered as part of the negotiation.
But not required.
Well, not required. The agreement, I don't believe the agreement between the 2 towns, East Lyme and Salem, I don't believe it has language. We have the information in the appendices. I don't recall, in briefly reviewing these, I don't recall specifically whether mediation and arbitration were part of the contract in East Lyme and
Steve, I want to understand your motion. I second it, but I want to further understand it. Tell me if I'm hearing it correctly. What you're looking for is for this board, the Board of Selectmen, the acting as the, even being the decision maker on taxes, want to officially say to the Board of Education in this town, find a method to resolve this by having a long-term contract. Is that what you're trying to get at here in this motion?
Absolutely.
So you're just looking for this board to support the effort of the Board of Education and the Gilbert School to resolve issues and establish a long-term contract. You're not suggesting any wording, you're not suggesting anything that should be added or taken away, but you're just suggesting that our position should support the state's suggestion.
Absolutely.
One thing different about East Lyme and Salem is that they're not part of an endowed academy. It's a difference. They have to make a contract with somebody for them to go to school there. Unlike an endowed academy, which has the benefits of the Connecticut state statute.
They only have 4,600 residents in Salem. They have to put their children somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely, and the three academies have very different situations. Norwich has something like 11 or 12 sending towns, sending districts.
And has a huge endowment.
A huge endowment as well. So every situation is unique, but what I'm looking for here is, I think the recommendation that the Department of Education has made to, well, it's actually made to the legislature, but it's made to us indirectly. I'm saying that I think this recommendation makes sense, and I think we ought to support the recommendation by transmitting our feelings to the Winchester Board of Education by our vote here of support.
I think I can support it, but I think I was at a meeting when this first came out over at the Board of Ed, and there was discussion about long-term versus short-term, 10 years versus 5 years. A lot can happen in 10 years. A lot of changes can happen in 10 years, and I don't think they ever settled on that. And I don't know if I feel comfortable saying I support a long-term agreement if the Board of Education, I don't know what the status is, how they feel about it. I would support this, but I don't know long-term versus short-term.
I noticed that one of these long terms are 20 years. The one between East Lyme, is it? 20 years. They signed it in July 1st, 2019, and it goes through June 30th to 2039. That's East Lyme and Salem. So there are school districts that can determine what long-term is. I don't think we're here to say what is a long-term. I think I'll support the motion because it says, as a Board of Selectmen, sitting as a Board of Finance, who are responsible for taxes and budgets, to say, get this thing resolved. Here's a way, and we support you working together with public school and TGS to get this resolved.
Steve, would you be in agreement that if there was a contract, that the state statute 10-34 should be something that was discussed in the contract, saying that it would not be used, and that the contract would supersede 10-34?
I don't think you can do that. You're saying we're not going to we're not going to obey the law?
No, 10-34 says that the Gilbert School would be able to set tuition. So if you're going to have a contract that talked about tuition, then would that supersede 10-34, and would that be okay?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you, and you know, that I've been involved at the Gilbert School for many years, until 2 years ago. I was part of the negotiation process. We were hopeful to get a long-range contract. There was, at one point in its lifetime, there was a 10-year contract between the school and the town. But negotiations became very difficult. We talked about binding arbitration. We talked about mediation. We used it At one point in my involvement, it was a very dissatisfying kind of experience. Toward the end of the arbitration, both sides sort of threw their hands up in the air and said, we've spent a lot of money on legal fees and we're still no closer to an answer. So I think that the two entities have got to, get back. I don't know, I've lost track of what the recent discussion has been, but they've got to get back to the table and they've got to come to an agreement. And I think the new concept for someone who represented Gilbert over the years is this idea of the specific methodology for determining the tuition. In my years, I don't recall us talking about calculations or a system of calculating as is suggested here. So I would push the motion forward. I hope we vote yes to encourage the local board and the Gilbert School to sit down and consider the recommendations suggested by the state.
So I was part of the study process myself, along with Town Manager Kelly, Superintendent Brady Shanley, School Board Chairman Fenninger, and Gilbert Superintendent Schrute with Gilbert Board Chairwoman Cassidy were in the meetings. If you turn to page 5 on this, and you go to section 4, their recommendation. In addition to a review of the various types of arrangements for the provisions of educating students in communities without a high school, the Connecticut State Department of Education also met with representatives of Gilbert School, the Winchester Public Schools, and the town of Winchester to better understand the various perspectives around the current arrangement for setting tuition for Winchester resident students attending the Gilbert School. The main concern that arose, which is frankly a long-standing one and not unique to the Gilbert School, is a lack of control Winchester has in determining the tuition rate and the corresponding impact that it has on the Winchester Public Schools. Conversely, the town of Winchester's budget process. As a remedy to this concern, they strongly advocate for a legislative change to the Endowed Academy statute that would require mediation and binding arbitration between the endowed academies and the municipalities they serve when there's a stalemate over the settings of the tuition rate. That is what we wanted, and I'm fairly certain that most of us up here have wanted a contract that provides budget certainty for the town of Winchester every year. Whether that contract is 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, however long it is, that's always been the goal. It is my opinion, and strictly my opinion, no one else is on the board here, that this study was a complete waste of time. They basically said, do what you've been trying to do for the last, well, since 2013 anyways, which I believe was the last contract that we had. The second paragraph, the department does not recommend a modification of the endowed academy statutes. Based on a review of the various funding mechanisms for the endowed academies and other designated high schools, the department would recommend that the Winchester Board of Education and the Gilbert School enter into a long-term arrangement that provides for specific methodology for calculating regular and special education tuition. This would allow for a better budget planning for both parties and has proven successful for the Salem-East Lyme relationship. The arrangement could also include a provision for arbitration and mediation in instances where they were necessary to achieve agreement versus a statutory change, which requires the mandate for all 3 endowed academies. We believe a long-term agreement would also resolve at least the mitigation of the annual discord that arises when the tuition rates are set versus the proposed change in statute to require arbitration mediation. So basically they said, our recommendation is to try to do what you've been trying to do, which is why we requested the arbitration and mediation. So this not only wasted the town manager's time, it also wasted both superintendents and both chairman and chairwoman's times. So I agree, the best idea is a contract, a substantial one that offers certainty to the town when it comes to the budget process. But I can't necessarily support this study because it was a waste of time, in my opinion. They said just keep doing what you're trying to do, which I think is what should still be happening anyways, but that's my thoughts on the matter. Any other comments?
I don't, just to be clear, I don't think his motion says we agree with the study, and I have a similar point of view. After all this work, yeah, we've been trying to do this, as you say, for 10 years. I just think we should now just make a statement saying, get it done. Come on.
Any other discussion? All right, so we have a motion on the floor to lend support. Okay, there we go. So the motion is that we support the recommendations of the State Department of Education that the Winchester Board of Education and the Gilbert School enter into a long-term legal agreement that provides for a specific methodology for calculating regular and special education tuition. All in favor? 3. Opposed? 4. Opposed? 3. 4 to 3. The motion passes. Item C, consider and possibly act on the approval of the town manager's amended contract.
So the document that's in front of you tonight has been reviewed a couple of times by the Board of Selectmen. It does represent, and there was some discussion, I hope everybody recalls. There was discussion and an approval back in May, just this past May, where I had requested an increase to be matched with the next lowest paid town manager in the state. This board very graciously approved that request, and that was a request for a $140,000 salary on my part. Last year I made $125,000 as a salary. I offered that back at the beginning of our budget discussion, at the beginning of the budget discussions after the first referendum failed. And moving forward from there, the Board of Selectmen once again was very gracious in offering me the opportunity to have a more modest increase, which is a 2.7% increase, in line with those being seen by other members of the town staff. So I appreciate that. I want to recognize what conversations occurred for members of the public, and then the fact that I very much appreciate the opportunity that was presented to me. But this is the contract as it was reviewed and discussed at our last executive session, and I ask that the Board of Selectmen please approve it at tonight's meeting.
Discussion?
Make a motion to approve the contract.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lynn. Now
So-
discussion.
Just the salary is now,
Oh, the salary is now
$437.50.
thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor of approving the town manager's contract? Unanimous. Thank you, Josh, for opening up your original contract again.
Got it.
New business, item 23-A, discussion with the town planner and director of economic development regarding the Route 800 corridor. Just make sure you're talking to the microphone so the TV can pick you up.
Good evening. My name's Lance Hansen, Director of Land Use Department and Town Planner.
And Ted Schaefer, the Economic Development Director. Thank you very much for inviting us this evening. We look forward to having a conversation with you about a certain corridor, Route 800, and hopefully, you received Lance's email with some background information that helps you fill in more of the details of that particular area. I also want to thank behind us our residents that are very active and very important in terms of these types of discussions, among others. They're from our Economic Development Commission, both current and past. And if there's an opportunity and you feel comfortable with that, you may want to hear some of their comments. I'm sure they'll be very valuable. So, first of all, do you have any questions about the materials you received from Lance and myself? We'd be happy to give you an overview of the information you received. So just for the audience.
Yes.
Thank you. So just for the audience and both here and at home, today we're going to be talking about the Winstead-Torrington Town Gateway. So this is a 2.5-mile stretch that runs just beyond Rowley, but runs up to the Torrington line. There's a mix of different entities that are in there. Traditionally in that area, you have industrial, commercial type operations, but you also have homes. You also have you even have a variety of other things in there, including a venue for special events. So, so one of the things that we could talk about is a exhibit that had some variables in it. It had the address of the entities that are there. It had also the owners, the acreage that's there, the vacant aspects of those addresses, current use, building areas, wetlands, approximate wetland acres, floodplain, steep slopes. Lance could talk about any of the details of all that, very well to help you understand that. I think part of your conversation here this evening is you would like to hear us and others talk about the economic development potential in the area. To help, that would help relieve the tax burden on the residents. And that's always the goal of one of the main goals of economic development, along with increasing the quality of life of those living in the town. So there's a lot to work with here. There are some limitations geography-wise. Maybe that would be a good segue. That's all.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to, first of all, be in front of you again, so thank you for the opportunity. And I also want to say thank you very much for the request, because this is one thing, an exercise I've been wanting to do quite some time anyways. But this economic development planning study, the reason for the corridor, and this is more for the folks that didn't get the write-up, is essentially the old Route 800 corridor is really a DOT term. So we call it the Torringford-Raleigh Street. And essentially everything south of Forest View Cemetery, all the way down to the Torrington line. And I realize there are other parcels that are zoned for gateway above that, but they actually make more sense to be considered in a Main Street corridor study as opposed to a little different. And Ted did a really nice job breaking down the general categories. There's about 6, I think, if I remember correctly. And
Isn't the corridor from North Main Street up to the Colbrook line?
No, and I apologize if you wanted that information too. So I focused on just south section, but in the Plan of Conservation and Development, both are addressed basically Route 8, Old 800 or whatever corridor together. So for the data that you received tonight, this is just for that southern town gateway zone. But thank you. Maybe we'll do that one next. So for this exercise is about 90 parcels. Totals roughly, again, these are very rough numbers, is 635 acres. And then just to break down, all right, so you all realize what my job is, but A developer looks at a piece of property and they want to look at it, how to develop it. A conservationist looks at a piece of property and they're looking at how much they can conserve. A town planner is thinking both things at the same time and evaluating and making those judgments. So between the Plan of Conservation and Development, which is the guiding document for our land use division department, and the Planning and Zoning Commission, obviously, these are the things that go into when we're especially talking about future economic development for these parcels. Now, you already mentioned, we know there's floodplain properties in this corridor. We also know there's steep slopes. So one of the maps I gave to you is very, very, very rough drawn. And it's really just a planning tool. It's not to be used, it's not a survey, it's not, and I know you all understand that, but just in case people want to know. And this statistics that you have are current as of Saturday, July 15th. So obviously any of these things could change in the meantime. Acreage is all taken from the Timmins GIS system, so it's accurate, but I would say I would want to do a double check with obviously the vision assessor's cards to make sure that's per review. I did not even take a stab at what the acreage is for a floodplain. As you see, it just says yes, no, because again, without a survey, it's meaningless. You need each parcel. And that's one other thing I want you to realize is the land use department, we have been very proactively offering pre-application consultations, and I think that's going very well. So the initial group is usually the fire marshal, building official, our New Inland Wetlands and Zoning Enforcement Officer, and myself. But when we get into the next phase of somebody kind of getting ready to apply, we bring in the Public Works Director, Chief of Police, Chief Fire Department Chief, who almost am I missing? Ted obviously is in there. There's others. So it's been really working well. And there was only, I think I may have mentioned 4 addresses that I would feel comfortable even talking about because they have started, but nothing formal has been proposed. We've had conversations with them. So it's a little pre-whatever for me to speak on them, but just know that those conversations are happening pretty consistently. And the other thing you should know, which you probably already realize, myself, economic director, our town planner, talk every day, and they'll attest that I bother them. So it's definitely working out very well in town's benefit for that conversations. And economic development, I've had an opportunity now to meet a few of your commission meetings, and they've been wonderful to step up whenever we have questions. Specifics. I don't know a lot of the property owners in town, so I don't have those connections with people, but I'm looking specifically at,
That'd be a good segue.
There we go.
Yeah, that's great. So as part of an economic development program, you develop relationships with the local business owners. So, the gentlemen behind me do such a nice job of that. I join them for these efforts. We have Dewey Yeager, Dennis Dressel, Gary Giordano, and Dave Satarana. And they could, out of the list that you have in front of them, we all have spent time getting to know these owners. It's so important as we talk about a strategy moving forward, the processes moving forward. I would even turn over, if it's okay, Mr. Mayor, just to turn it over to these folks to talk about their efforts. They've had networking breakfasts. They have really made connections, and I've joined them for those efforts. So, would you like to say something, Julie? Sure. Yeah. You guys could just want to speak into the microphone.
Dewey Yeager. Honestly, I'm thrilled about this initiative. It's the development of the Route 8 corridor, I guess we're calling it, but or whatever other name, because the need has certainly been there, is there now, has been there for quite some time, and it's really it's been one of the top EDC wish list items, but collective attention and support, I think, is key, is really key. I also think, Candy, a little bit to your point, I was going to mention that I think our existing business parks to the north, International Way, Grapple, John Grapple, they could use some attention too. You've got some very impressive businesses located in there. We could name them. Most of them you know what's in there. I think we could make these parks more attractive, fix roads, cut back vegetation, upgrade signage. Just figure out who's responsible for the maintenance. What lots are left available along that corridor. We know of at least one, but beyond that, and where their proposed development status is. All these kinds of questions, but I think this exercise would be great, pretty much for the entire town. To elsewhere, what larger buildings are underutilized, right, for renovation. What conversations have been held with owners? Where do we stand? I know a lot of this has been done, but the more we can do, the better. And also, what kind of businesses we'd like to attract? What kind of businesses can we attract? These kinds of questions. And green is certainly figuring into that equation too. So I think let's do it. Let's do it in an attractive manner too, along the lines of the PCD. I'm a fan. Thank you.
Questions from the board?
Are we at the question stage? Wait, no, are those guys finished? I mean, are you at the question
I
stage?
had a few more comments.
Okay, go ahead.
And then I just thought it'd be helpful, and then we could get ready for the conversation. So thank you very much. My last comments is just in my role as the director, what kind of further efforts could we make? Since arriving here, I think I've established a good baseline in terms of networking. I'm very well established into the local business associations. We have met many developers. We've brought them here, showed them around town, to get to this part of the discussion. Where do we want to go next? The EDC and all our networking, the breakfast, we've established relationships with the owners. So here would be some strategies to raise the commercial tax base. Expansions of the local businesses. If they're doing well, we would encourage them to expand their businesses. That would, raise the commercial tax base there. Maybe encourage them, maybe if we found an outside entity that wanted to come to our nice town, maybe we could encourage some folks to sell some of their land or some of their buildings, and put together a development package that's appropriate and you guys feel comfortable with. The other thing too is there's a variety of different businesses other than commercial industrial. We have some folks that actually have houses in this area. Maybe we could package up some of the houses. They get attractive packages, something that they would feel comfortable with, and we could bring in entities that way. We just have to work within our parameters, our limitations. I think we got a fine staff, and we have a fine group of residents that are very focused and very knowledgeable about this area. So I'll leave it at that.
And obviously, we're available for questions anytime, please.
Anyone on the board?
I have a question. The 134 acres AJK, where is that?
So it has frontage on Mountain Road when you go uphill Highland Lake Road, but the street frontage is that house right near the town line, and sometimes you set trailers in there, sometimes you don't. But it's an empty. It almost looks like it's an old store kind of home. It's just. Is it Mountaintop? I'm not even positive. It's the
Danny
owner.
Stone.
Okay, thank you.
Well, what kind of conversations have been held with them since they had the largest amount of open land here?
Great question. I can't speak to that 'cause it's only been 9 months for me, but has there been anything in the past?
I've spoken with him, and he keeps it pretty close to the cup, what he's doing. He owns big tracts of land, both in Torrington,
Yeah.
Princeton, and Colebrook. And, at this point, he's just sitting on it.
Didn't that property lead up to the top of the mountain there too, right? That used to be the old railway.
Well, the old trolley tracks.
Trolley tracks.
At one time,
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a large piece of property, one of the largest there. And the other large one at Raleigh Street, the 23 acres that Rhodes owns, has anybody been in conversations with him?
I have visited him in the past. I think that's probably a separate conversation, but that's currently Walking Guns, USA Firearms.
And just for clarification, which piece of property is the dome on, or the whole, the old?
165?
147.
I'm sorry, 147. You're
Yeah,
right.
that just sold.
Did it? 147.
Do we know what that's going to be used for, or are they gonna build something, or was it?
We're waiting on permits, but what we've been told is it is going to be a welding operation.
How many
Such as far
acres?
as- Yeah,
Hey, what kind of operation?
for like a welding,
Fabrication.
Because that's not listed here. That piece of property isn't listed.
should be.
It should be.
Yeah, it is.
Do I have it listed?
Has to be.
M&S Properties LLC.
And that is the new owner that's listed on there.
Got it. Maybe I'm wrong.
There is some property for sale, sorry.
Okay.
And has any action on that happening, or have they reached out to you? Is somebody?
We have a meeting with them tomorrow. So yes, so the answer is, the short answer is yes.
And the reason that I thought we should have you come in and talk about the Route 800 corridor, and I meant both ends of it, from town line to town line, is way back in 2016, the conversations about, revenue was as much, well, revenue's always been a discussion. And so I had done a rough revenue map, in the corridors, and we call it Gateway North and Gateway South, and also one of the other industrial parks. And I think that's what I'm trying to get to is, what's our current revenue in those areas? Because revenue just doesn't come from the land or the building. When you have manufacturing, you have the machines that are, personal property that are taxed, and equipment, larger equipment than you would have in normal areas. So when you look at the area, like, for instance, and just a rough estimate, and this is from like 2016, in the Gateway South, they estimated the tax revenue to be $567,000. In Gateway North, estimated $305,000. And then we also had the technology park, adds another $105,000. So as you can see, that this corridor is producing revenue for the town, and they're just bigger amounts. And I think that the development of this corridor and looking at what's happening there, as Candace said, there's land for sale, or there's other pieces, or one of you said something about the expansion or the utilization of the larger buildings that people may be breaking down into different pieces and renting out square footage. We have, the Fairchild that just got changed over. You have a couple other entities up there that, East Coast Lighting, and a couple other ones up there too that are big, that I think that when we look at, if we took the same revenue map on Main Street, it's not the same. The revenue map on Main Street from the smaller businesses, because I started to look at that and their personal property and whatnot, is you're talking like $1,000 here or $2,000 there in terms of tax revenue. Not their revenue, not what they make, not what happens that way, but when you look at that. So the quality of life on Main Street is good to be an attractive town and for all of us to have a good time. But I think this Route 800 corridor is one of the areas in town that I think efforts to develop and to have people come in and establish businesses here are going to be well worth all of the effort, because I know you all work hard. There's no doubt that you all work hard. You meet, you talk about it and stuff. But I was focused on this area to look at what we can develop. And also, I think it's important that we start talking about this at the board level more, because there are people out there that think none of this is happening. Right? They think none of this is happening when we know that there are things happening, but a lot of times we don't even see it. So I think it's important for you to get out front. I think the website, I know that there should be, I haven't found it on the website yet, but where economic opportunities are, what kinds of, I know there's forms up there, but narratives about how to develop or how to meet or have pre-application meetings and what's available. So I would really like to continue this going forward in terms of this particular corridor.
In addition to what Candy's saying, the narrative is what she said is key. Because you're not only selling properties, you're selling a lifestyle, because you have the ability in this town to transform those properties, because you're not only selling jobs, or you're selling also the greenway. So those people can live there and work there and enjoy where they live and exercise. It's almost like you have the ability to create a mini, industrial park where there's actually trails going through it for their employees at the lunchtime. So you're not just selling a piece of land or a welding. The welding, the family, the workers, I always call them family because that's what I consider it. They come out at lunch. Where do they go? They're going to have the opportunity. Plus, you're going to have to get the easements to, continue that greenway. But the narrative is you can create a world there now. The drawings are there. The plans are there. So it's not just. And the greatest aspect about it is, obviously, it gives people jobs. You don't get that on a main street. You get those in industrial areas. So you're selling a lifestyle, and you're selling jobs to the residents, and hopefully, and also the development of the whole sector. Plus, I believe, and I may be wrong, we have in our plans in the future to extend some of our infrastructure, water and sewer down there. If we actually have businesses there, we could extend that. Well, we can't do it unless we have, the whole concept. It really needs to be more of a master plan, and not just it's the southern corridor. It really has to be, a direction. And the same goes for the north corridor. Land was taken, for properties to create these industrial parks. Are there any other opportunities to expand those parks? Again, making them more attractive. Luckily, they're very stable, but, maybe someone could take over another complex and create, another attractive business there. There's not much more land getting up there to Colebrook, up in that sector, but I think it really has to be a narrative, and it has to be on our website to say, this is where Winstead's going. This is our biggest opportunity. And on top of that, if the land is the land trust and Highland Lake, you're gonna have a whole other set of trails that's gonna attract people, to that area.
Anyone else?
Those are all excellent, and every single thing you talked about, we've had multiple discussions. And definitely, I don't want to talk out of speed, but 137, which you all know, Kenny Fracasso's property, has probably, in my mind, the greatest potential. So, yep, thank you.
But the narrative has to be created so that, and slideshows and presentations, so that you're ready to rock and roll, when someone comes in to potentially buy a piece of property there, so.
Yeah. Gentlemen, I applaud your efforts, and I know you guys get hit up every time, a couple times a month. Somebody yells at me, we need a Trader Joe's, we need a Starbucks, bring entertainment to town, bring medieval times. This is for all 6 of you. give me a vision, north and south, either one. What's a vision you guys have for the area?
Candy, how much should I share that I've already talked with you about?
It has to be about revenue, Lance.
Yeah, I know, you want revenue. I get it. Absolutely. You know, it's funny. I went to the summer concert series this past Thursday, and I was speaking with some of the residents, and it was funny. I wasn't working. I was just there to enjoy it, and they were sharing with me what they
You're
want.
always
town.
working if you work for
Well,
town.
true, and they recognize you. It's funny. I think we're right on the cusp of something pretty great for town. And there's a lot of energy. I'm not even on social media, and I'm feeling it. So I won't tell you specifics of what my wish lists are, but I think we're definitely getting there, and there's such potential in some of the parcels that we've been in this description for redesign and/or, you know, if the vacant parcels where it's appropriate to be built.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The only other comment I would make, something to keep in mind, is that since I've been here and in prior positions, I've talked to many developers and attracting them, and we've been attracting them. But one of the questions that comes up with a developer is, why should they come here? And that goes to your point. It's just building that vision, but it has to be a realistic vision for the developer. So you talk about a Starbucks, or you talk about, I don't mean to pick on Starbucks, but, you know, it's, they see that. It is not, sometimes it's just not their thing.
Well, we don't want a Starbucks. We want jobs.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
it-
want $15
Yeah.
an hour.
Workforce development is one of the top priorities of this town and of the state. And the job fair, you mentioned that earlier, so
I love that indoor grower in Torrington. I wish
Yeah.
he was right there on the corridor.
Yep.
You know, whether it's weed or lettuce, I don't
Yeah,
care.
agriculture is
Yeah.
a big sector.
Yeah.
We have our eye on the sectors, and there are some appropriate developers, and it's just a constant process of bringing them in, seeing if we can match up what we would like as a town and what they have to offer. So
Are you approaching them, the developers?
So that happens in a lot of different ways. So the answer is yes. I'm approaching developers as part of our recruitment program.
So are you
But-
saying there's vacant property on Raleigh Street, or what are there, on Standard Avenue? Would you be interested in looking at this property for your business? Is that?
Yeah, so what generally happens with developers, as with construction companies, they have a specialty. They specialize in a certain type of business. So they will look at the land that we have, and they may pass.
So are you reaching out to them, or are you contacting them, or are they contacting you?
It happens a lot of different ways. This is like a sales marketing type of discussion. So what happens is it happens that way, where I will just cold call them. Other times, they have been mentioned to me, so I'll have a warmer welcome. You know, I've talked to somebody that we both know. People that I know through all these networking activities, they refer developers to us.
Okay.
So it's really, you know, it's a multi-pronged situation. And that also happens with tenants, potential tenants, and that's happened on Main Street, where folks have approached us.
So soon we'll see these vacant lots filled.
Yeah, that is what it's all about. Everything, every conversation builds on itself. And like Lance said, and everybody here tonight, we're just so encouraged. I think this is a great next level discussion, where you're so involved in hearing about this, and we are so excited to tell you about things that are the conversations, and hopefully it sounds good to you all and to the residents. So I think that things are just going to be happening.
I'd like to bring up one more point too, though. If we're going to attract manufacturers and larger businesses here, we have to talk tax abatement. We're fighting against Terryville, parts of Torrington, Waterbury. We're, you know, giving good tax abatements to these people to move on. We don't give anything. So we have the quality of life. We also, but it all boils down to the dollar sign, as you all know, at the end. So
not against tax abatement for real businesses. I'm not against that at all. I would support definitely, you know.
We don't have any type of program right now. We would-
Yes, well, yes, you do. You have a connection with Torrington in that corridor itself.
Yeah, I realize that.
Yeah.
But we do, I mean,
We can do anything we want.
we just did, you know, a tax abatement that came up when we did it with the church. You know, so in particular cases, it sometimes makes sense. In other cases, it doesn't make sense. But there is on the books and whatnot. And I think one of the things we want to talk about too is measuring, right? The measurement of this. So I have this crude, like I told you, revenue map. I'd like to see a revenue map, just of the business property, not residential along the line, but you know, what's the revenue map look like now? What should it look like a year from now or 2 years from now? Because I think it's like important to do that so that we all know what's happening. Because if the revenue and businesses don't change down there, you know, then where are we? Where are we right now in terms of it? And I think that's a good data set to have. I think, you know, the abatement issue is, well, what people want abatements. You know, who wants to come and do that? And you know, what would we get in exchange for the abatement? What's the growth going to be over time? So I think that. So what else do you need from us? What else would you need to continue to work on this corridor to maybe develop a third industrial park or to make it bigger? What are the things that you need to go forward and do this?
Yeah, well, I think tonight's a great start. So access to you all. We see you individually. You're very supportive. You're very interested, but as a whole, as a body, as the governing body, number one, I would think access to you from time to time to get you updated. We will create metrics, the revenue, and we will give that to you to see over time so you can measure, you can see where the measurements are. I think that's important. And from time to time, we may ask you to, there may be an important just meet and greet where we just meet some very important players. And if you have the time available, or maybe as individuals or maybe as a board, just it might be nice to, they could feel your support, your enthusiasm towards that, and I think that goes a long way. So those are just three things I can think
I
of.
also think you need to, you have to include Public Works in this discussion. What's lacking to develop the area? You know, what's preventing them from developing the area, a developer? You know, that, you know, you go for the abatement, but what are we gonna get for it? You know, what do we have to, what services do we have to provide for that building in order for, you know, to actually have them there? What's holding them back? If there's an empty lot,
Yeah.
do we have to, you know, send water and sewer down there? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think there needs to be a vision from Public Works as well for what's needed in that area, because you have to support it, you know?
Yeah. Well, this is definitely, the whole thing for tonight is a unified approach
Right.
to getting it done. We're all, so much talent and so much support from you all. And if we do the right things, good things are gonna be happening. And we're pretty confident that's gonna happen. Hopefully sooner rather than later. So.
I'll just end. What I'd like to do now as the next step is take the rest of the corridor focus to the north, and then we'll start working in the metrics and maybe create this new metrics map. It'll make a lot of sense, and then kind of go revisit back down to the south.
You mentioned the two industrial parks. Are they completely filled, and what are we doing to market those as available entities right now?
John Grappo. So to the north, we have the industrial park. That is almost completely filled at this time. Maybe I should speak here for the home audience. So that's just about filled. We do get phone calls and contact from brokers with some interest or some possible interest. Just this evening, someone asked to speak to us in the hallway. This is very common. We have confidential conversations. Someone had a lead for Lance and I on maybe someone going in that last piece, or, you know, maybe something more in that area. So,
Well, we have two parks. We have one on the,
Kind of have three.
going north on the left and one off of Route 20.
Yep.
Are both being marketed that way? Are there still openings?
There's definitely square footage available. My opinion, they actually are they could be developed even heavier and support in the productive and innovation unit. And actually, maybe it might be a good planning exercise to look at those individually, separately, as their own little space. Because then you have the Price Road development up further north on Route 8.
Well, the
Thank
Price
you.
Road and the Grappa Road, and then you have the,
I think it was
Winstead
Industrial Way.
Industrial Park, Winchester Industrial Park, and Price.
Yeah.
And across the street.
In Torrington,
On the right side.
they started a program a couple years ago, because I was involved at meetings with them, where they were gardening, you know, taking current businesses that existed and seeing if they can't grow them.
yeah.
So that whole concept, so I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to talk, you know, to Rista down in Torrington, because she's been at it for a few years now, and they seem to be really moving a lot of things along.
Thank you for saying that. We forgot to mention that we did actually meet with my counterpart, Jeremy, who's the city planner in Torrington, and Nate, who's the assistant town planner. And Rista unfortunately wasn't able to make it, but that is our follow-up conversation. We want to have Ted, myself, our new zoning enforcement officer, Jeff, meet Nate, who's our assistant town planner.
When did you meet with them?
Was it Wednesday?
Last week.
Yeah, last week we ended up. And it was another thing I'd already put in Jeremy's ear like months ago. I said we should really do some regional planning together, and he thought that was a good idea too. So this has kind of kicked off that conversation. So again, thank you for that.
Because we do have a common abatement program between the two towns.
Yeah. I've known Rista for years. I knew her in different capacities, and we've worked together. And actually, after that meeting that we had with the town planning staff, I did see Rista at another planning session. So I did mention that we were going to be talking about this. So I think we have good partners and a good synergy with Torrington. I think some good things can come out of that. Thank you.
Thank you. New business item B, 23-54, consider and possibly act on the adoption of a new ordinance regarding the creation of a historical commission.
So while we're thinking about economic development and things of that nature, a question was posed by a individual who is hoping to develop one of our larger mill buildings as to whether the town would be supportive of pursuing, helping him, I should say, pursue historic tax credits for the redevelopment of the site. And as we've gone into this process a little bit more and done more research, historic district commissions are needed to be formed in order to manage these areas that are created. And there's an entire petition process. State and federal governments involved with various levels of said petitioning and granting of statuses, the procedures around all of this. But the goal that or the original mission that was brought to my attention that needs to be addressed is we have old historic buildings in town. We need to pursue every last dollar that we can at the state and federal level in order to see these buildings rehabilitated. As of right now, Winchester is not necessarily pursuing these revenue sources as aggressively as it could. And there are other organizations and other businesses and towns that are pursuing them aggressively and are, really trying to manage their historical resources. So I'm trying to take this to the next level. Instead of just looking at a couple of buildings, I want to bring to the Board of Selectmen's attention, and you might see it my way, you might not, but I'm bringing to your consideration the possibility of creating a historical commission. This historical commission would have multiple purposes, but first and foremost, it would serve as the town's a formal conduit for us to connect with individuals in town who have significant historical knowledge and an interest in maintaining and preserving the town's history. Right now, while we have the Winchester Historical Society, which is a wonderful piece of the puzzle that is Winchester, and we have other smaller historic districts that have been created, we don't have a singular true town organization that is that conduit, that is that nexus between these conversations, and can help, from the town's perspective, pursue further development and maintenance of our historic resources. So I am hopeful that we may be able to move forward with the creation of such a commission. This commission would be able to serve in the capacity, an oversight agency for multiple historic district commissions that need to be formed. And like I said, these are all that work is required in order to pursue historic tax credits, which can help us revitalize some of these older buildings. The specifics of the ordinance that I have presented to you, the draft ordinance, I should say, that's been presented to you, are certainly up for negotiation, debate, conversation, etc. What I have done here, I believe that this is primarily adopted from Windsor Locks. I took their model, it may be Windsor or Windsor Locks, but I took a model of a historical commission from that, and I added to it things, specifically powers and duties in section 4 of the proposed ordinance, that I think are important to take a look at. And what I've proposed is that we haven't had a municipal historian formally appointed in the last couple of years. Unfortunately, with the passing of the former municipal historian, Amelia Hudak, we have that vacancy. I am proposing that position be folded into a historical commission so that we are not losing that formal position. That's outlined here in this draft ordinance. And there are specific powers and duties that are outlined in the draft ordinance. And I did this with a purpose so that it would be a purpose-driven organization that is created if the Board of Selectmen sees fit to adopt it. And that a charge is very clear. The terms of that historical commission, the purpose of really maintaining an inventory of and pursuing dollars for the maintenance and preservation of different historic sites and so forth is very well outlined. So this is a proposal. I understand if the Board of Selectmen has lots of questions, comments, needs for changes, and same goes for members of the public. This is very much a new idea for Winchester, but I hope that the benefits are visible. And certainly we have a couple more meetings that would need to be held before any final decisions are made.
Could I bring it up, you have membership terms and vacancies, you have totally conflicting information in 2 areas.
Okay.
Section A, the last sentence. All members shall be electors of the town of Winchester and shall serve without pay. And then C, members of the commission need not be residents.
That's a good point. My apologies. I must have added in a line explicitly. I likely added in C without realizing that the line appeared in A. But that's a simple change that we can make.
Yeah, just wanted to point it out.
Thank you.
But I think what we change it to is important, because I would not be in favor of non-residents.
Okay.
But I would be in favor of possibly building owners that may not be residents.
That makes sense.
So they may own a business in a historic building, but don't live here.
Yeah, like we do with budget votes, property owners and electors.
Right. So I would add it, say, all members shall be property owners and electors. Could be, so that's the change that we wanted with EDC that didn't make it through the charter change.
Thank you.
So I would eliminate C and then modify A.
Yep.
Any other questions? Yeah, certainly there's some, just raising some concern about how extensive the authority might be on such a commission. For instance, there's some questions in here about, who reports to them and how they can manage some of the historical areas. I'm concerned about sort of the cemeteries. Is that part of it? So would this historical commission be a part of managing the cemeteries? Would the Soldiers Monument Commission, that is a separately standard appointed commission, would that be now reporting to this commission? Just some questions about the detailing of this. Getting say, I think you mentioned an outside advisor. That would be very beneficial, to be somebody who oversees this. I think you call one of the members would be a municipal historian. So you, first of all, have to choose someone to be one of the town's historians, and then make sure, as you're formulating the commission, who the other 6 people are. I agree that I don't think there should be just people from town. We lost a good person who could have continued being on the Soldiers Monument Commission because they moved out of town, but are still very interested in the commission. We have other people who are extremely interested in the history of the town, who do not live in town, but add their weight to the information that we're doing as a Soldiers Monument Commission. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of details here that still need to be worked out. And probably more importantly is how is the Historical Society, which is a nonprofit organization, interact with all of this, and how would this Historical Commission influence or not influence the Historical Society. So I applaud you for bringing this up, because there has been conversation in the past about an overall historical commission taking a look at the value of our town, and to have this brought up specifically for a building or a grant gets us started talking about it. But as I said, I think in the detailing of how we extend it over the entire town really needs to be worked out more.
I understand that you can get a grant for someone to map this all out for us for about $25,000 or something, through the State of Connecticut Historical Society? That they...
Connecticut Historical Society, I don't believe offers such grants, but I am
Torrington.
sure that there are resources available.
Yeah.
But part of the reason, and I think it actually ties very well into the discussion we just had, having a unified approach and having one entity instead of, each of us have had our various conversations with different members of the community and each other about how do we move forward with some of these building rehabilitations? How do we move forward with keeping and managing some of these different historic properties? If we have one, like I said, nexus, one place where we can all sit down and know that those conversations are happening and know that recommendations will come from that agency to the Board of Selectmen, and conversations can be had between that town agency and the Historical Society, I think that helps us get on the same page, helps us build that unified vision that we've been looking for.
Yeah, this person helps you create the inventory.
Yeah, and that's very needed. I agree.
And there's, I don't know, I was talking to Main Street Torrington today about it, and there's a process where I think Torrington's going through that right now as well.
Okay.
So.
If you have a name for me at Main Street Torrington, it might be great to just hear directly from them, hey, what process are you going through? Why reinvent the wheel and try and find that one? Obviously,
Because
they're taking advantage of a great
they met with the
opportunity.
state at some capacity, so,
Yep.
he can tell you how to, because that would be a component. I think you need an outside consultant to help you and receive and maintain that data.
Yep. And I know that's also true for the creation of different historic districts, is you really need a grant, and the state does offer grants for that, to go through and figure out, hey, is this an area that would qualify to become a historic district and so forth, which is important.
Well, there's a West End Historic District between Union and Elm.
Right.
So we have a historic district already. I think in Torrington, when you bring up Torrington, the Torrington Historical Society is very active throughout town,
Yep.
not just within their building. Like when there's a building that was going to be raised, I think, over on the west side of town, they were part of that discussion and part of, being, this is a historical building, what are we going to do with it? And how can we protect it, or how can we have parts of it, or, what are alternatives? So they're active throughout the city, not just at their house.
We might have a train station still if we had an organization like this.
Oh, way back.
Yeah.
You kind of began this by focusing on 10 Bridge Street, right?
I did.
Okay. Can you separate and say, we can have a historical commission that works on just one area?
We could. That's really a historic district commission. So you're taking a historic district and you have an agency, an organization that's focused just on managing that space, overseeing the application for grants and so forth
Because
for that historic
that's more
district.
timely and more critical, isn't it?
It is. There's an element of timing. I think I'm bringing this up with just the right amount of time for discussions to occur and for something to come to fruition that will assist, the building of the rebuilding of 10 Bridge Street to an extent. My concern with separating out the issue, and that's exactly why I'm bringing this to you today and not simply saying, hey, we need a historic district commission, is the unified approach, is saying, do we want to continue to have, just as Candy said, we already have historic districts. We have one on the West End. My understanding is we have one in and around East End Park.
We do.
Right. So we have these entities. How are they being managed? How are they being cataloged? How are we advertising to developers that these things exist for good or ill? And how do we have a unified message with what we want our town to look like and how we want to preserve these buildings? Having yet another historic district and commission associated with it, I think just adds to the chaos of we're spread out and the vision isn't singular. And I would like to get to that level.
508 Main Street, that could be in the historic district and that could get funding to be rehabbed.
At least it should be explored, and I think we need a group that is ready and able to explore, because on a daily basis, I know how crazy our day was today, and we tried to sit down multiple times to talk about different developments. We can't focus all our time on historic items. It would be great to have another group that is focused on it, specifically helping the town.
Are there some basic criteria that need to be established to create a historic district? Like, for instance, the east end of town around East End Park, when that was established, the park was there forever, and so that became part of the historical district. The west end, I don't know, but around the Soldiers Monument, while it is on the National Register, it's not a historic district by quoting of what is in the historic district.
But isn't only the park the historic district, not the buildings around it?
My understanding is it's the buildings around it.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
It's Park Place.
And that impacts what if somebody, not that we're really trying to develop in and around East End Park, but that really does impact when somebody comes in and says, I want to come in and make some changes or build something new or add, subtract.
Say, no, you
Yeah,
can't.
there are lots of considerations that a developer is going to have on that. And Jack, I'm sorry, you had asked a specific question and it's escaped me.
So I guess I was just focusing on the fact that if we have these different districts already and we want to make something happen with 10 Bridge Street right away, what's the quickest action we can help that particular item move forward? If we then need to create a broader base historic commission, we can continue working on that.
Yep.
But perhaps because of the timing of 10 Bridge Street and what they want to do there,
Existing nonprofit.
we should move it.
Use an existing nonprofit.
Yep. So it's an application process to become a historic district. So it's going to require time and energy, which is one of the things I would hope that a historic commission would be able to bring to the table, to an application that would first get grant funding, hopefully, to have a specialist come in and catalog what is this area going to look like, and really build a case as to why is the government going to accept this as a historic district. That includes information about the date in which the building was first built, the condition of the building, the historic preservation of a style of building in some cases, the various buildings around it. Just going for one building in a historic district is not likely to gain traction. We need to figure out what should the district really look like? Why should some of these buildings be included? And like I said, build that case. It does take a significant amount of time and like I said, time and energy. And money, but luckily there are grants available for that. It just takes a little bit more time to go after those so you can bring somebody on board. The fastest way forward, if you're either using an existing nonprofit or to simply create your own smaller historic district commission that has a smaller scope of work than what I've outlined here, to try and move forward with this. But they are going to need to bring an understanding of the area and that time and attention.
If a building is, if a historic district is created around buildings, are there limitations on what can happen to that building?
My understanding is yes. I don't know all of the specifics around it, but that's one of the reasons why it does take so much time and energy. You have to reach out to each of these building owners, and my understanding is they have to each elect to be in the district, and it also needs to be contiguous. So if you have a historic district, say we wanted to have, I'm making up, an example here just because they've been in our our frame of reference recently. If you wanted to have 10 Bridge Street and 35 Willow Street in the same historic district, you need to have the building in between them, which is also over there on Willow Street, be a part of that. So now you have a third property. Even if you had 2 property owners in play, now you need to have a conversation with the third. It really is time consuming. You also need to consider when were each of those buildings built, why should they be part of the same historic district, all of those types of things. It's a very difficult process, but it's one that would be rewarding if we were able to move some of these properties along and get them eligible for historic tax credits, especially 10 Bridge Street.
And windows.
And windows, yes.
Look at what Whiting Mills had to do, to get windows, because they're historic.
I would appreciate it, but it's up to you.
Can we have a motion to send this to a second meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? Any more discussion?
And what, the motion is just that we're formally acknowledging the consideration.
Right.
I'll post the legal notice on the website so people are aware and you can have discussion on it at your next meeting.
It's step one.
All in favor? Unanimous?
So before we move on,
Did you get a second?
Yeah, he seconded it.
so before we move on, can we just return to the Civil Service Commission ordinance? Did we take a vote on that? It's 10 o'clock.
No,
so
we
maybe-
did not.
I don't think we did. So if we're gonna move,
But we have to take a vote each time we meet?
Well, yeah, because you have to take a vote to move from,
We did the
to
third.
establish the ordinance or
We
change
did
an
not
ordinance
vote.
to do
We
that.
did not vote.
And so then if we're moving past the second step into the third step of repealing the ordinance, we would have to have a vote on that. Did we do that last meeting?
Yeah.
Yes, we did it the last meeting.
So we had a formal vote the last meeting, so we would need a formal vote to move it to the next step this
I
meeting.
make a motion to move the ordinance for Civil Service Commission to our, what is it, August 17th meeting?
Nope.
No,
August
August 7th.
7th.
whatever, just,
A second.
And it's a repeal of it,
right, to repeal.
the civil service ordinance.
It's,
That's what we're doing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, it's the
the
proposed
ordinance, the ordinance.
alteration, which is that.
Yeah.
It's a repeal.
What's a repeal? Because that's,
It's elimination.
the steps to revise, repeal ordinances there.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'll second.
You got the second? All in favor? Opposed? Abstaining?
Jack, did you vote? I know you're shuffling papers over there.
Just moving it forward.
13D, 23-56, proposed line item transfer.
So,
I am opposed to this. We're C, right?
no, sorry, we're skipping C.
Oh,
That was removed from the agenda
Oh,
at the
I'm
beginning of the
sorry.
meeting.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
we're moving on to D.
thank you.
Thank you. So this is, at the end of the year, we typically have 1 or 2 larger interdepartmental, so that means going from one department to another, transfers that need to occur between several departments. And this is to settle up in areas where there were overages for various reasons. I can go through some of these in detail if you so choose, but there is a document that outlines exactly where money's coming from and going to. The bottom line total is $137,700 from various accounts to other accounts. That includes $22,000 from unnegotiated settlements to the assessor's administrative salaries line. That includes $5,500 from unnegotiated settlements to the Board of Assessment Appeals, labor, skilled, and professional line. It includes $101,000 from various lines, primarily, well, all within the highway department, to various lines throughout the town's administration, primarily for electricity purposes and street lighting related to electricity overages. As we all know, there were many months there where we were getting hit hard. And $9,200, which is coming from purchasing and other shared costs into senior services. We did have a member of our town hall, or our town staff at the senior center, that did come on to our town's health insurance partway through the year. That was unexpected and unaccounted for last year. So that includes that. Like I said, electricity right up above that for the $101,000. With Board of Assessment Appeals, we had a lot of appeals this year, and it required minutes to be written. We had overages in that line beyond what is typically budgeted, and we also had additional payments for fiscal year 2022 that hadn't yet been made out, and we realized after the fiscal year closed that payments hadn't been made out to members of the Board of Assessment Appeals. It wasn't brought to our attention until much, much later, but we had to pay those out of fiscal year 2023, unfortunately. The assessor, we did require additional assistance in order to make sure we had a certified assessor who could sign the grand list at the time, and that rounds out our $137,700 requested transfer. And I ask that the Board of Selectmen consider adopting this proposed transfer in its entirety.
The 48 for street lighting, is that all electricity?
Yes, street lighting, it's only electricity. We do not pay for the various poles that have been down on Main Street.
Yes, we do, 8, but that's not included in this budget.
Well, yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Last meeting we got our Public Works Director here, and he was talking about engineering and fees, and we were talking about some things that were not done yet, because we're still in need of engineering. So we're transferring money out of engineering for some things that are needed in roads and culverts and all that kind of stuff. So why are we not keeping that money in engineering for Public Works?
I would have to ask Jim for specifics on that exact line as to why it's $24,000 under expended. There is more than $24,000 easily within that line on an annual basis. So having having that amount left over is not necessarily surprising. And we've had engineering firms that are simply backed up. Even when we're trying to get engineering work done, they aren't able to tend to us in a timely manner. And in this case, we've now elapsed the end of the fiscal year, which has put us in a position where it's another $24,000 that does need to be spent, but it was not spent last year on engineering services.
Couldn't they cut a purchase order for it?
No, any work, so just by general government accounting standards, any work that is done after June 30th in a given fiscal year, even if you sign the paperwork and the PO is issued before June 30th, if the work is conducted after that moment in time, it belongs to the next fiscal year. We would have had to have all of that work conducted before June 30th, and it wasn't able to get done.
This information is incorrect because you have transposed the two highways. 859 is really 851. Engineering services is 851, and 859 is salt.
Okay, they're switched.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the budget for engineering services. And it appears there's $32,000 in the line.
Right.
So out of the 32,000, we have 24, that number, was it 24?
24.
Left over?
I need to speak with the Director of Public Works about it further.
I'm fine with the other transfers, but I really am not in
Well,
favor.
according to the report, they've only expended $5,900 year-to-date as of the end of June. In that
Right,
line.
that's exactly what Candy's drawing attention to, I think.
Yes.
Yep.
The fact that we need engineering to do these culverts, we need engineering to do the drainage, to do all these things before we can pave a road, but yet we haven't spent it.
crazy that you can't do a smaller job and not the whole thing at one time, you know, it's.
Right.
It's the first time we have taken money out of Public Works that has to do with roads for something else. Since I've been in office, it's the first time. We've never transferred out. So it's very disappointing. And and that used to get robbed all the time before by previous management.
I could certainly bring you another proposal, if that would be more comfortable for you at the next meeting.
Can you take out just the engineering services?
Yep.
And
Leave the
then
rest.
and then we could vote on the rest?
Yep, that's fine too.
But you'd have to do the 24 on the, what you're transferring it to side.
Right. So you could take 24 out of street lighting, make it a $24,000 transfer now, and we'll finish out a $24,000 transfer at the next meeting.
So does everybody know what we're doing? Because I'll make a motion.
Repeat that again.
So my motion would be that we approve the transfers as proposed by the town manager, except for the engineering,
Except for $24,000.
the $24,000 from engineering, and adjust the street lighting accordingly to,
Which
One
brings
ele-
the bottom total, the bottom line total to,
113,700.
you got it.
113.
so again, the motion is to approve the transfers as recommended by the town manager, removing the $24,000 from engineering services, adjusting street lighting by that same $24,000 to bring the street lighting to,
$24,000.
Well, where's the street lighting money gonna come from?
they'll have to bring back to
Yeah,
us the
we'll
next
bring you,
meeting.
I'll bring you another transfer next
He'll
meeting.
come up with
Okay.
money from somewhere else to pay for that
To
next time.
24,000 for a total of $113,700 in transfer.
Because this doesn't balance it otherwise.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Candace. Any discussion?
Is Glenn okay with it following along?
Absolutely.
Hey, I've been
You're
checking
ahead
his
of us,
work.
right?
He's keeping it.
Okay.
All in favor? Unanimous. Item 14, executive session, discussion on strategy and negotiations of contracts to include Town Manager Kelly. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you, Steve. It is 10:13 PM.
Do you know where your dogs are? Hopefully it's all.
Yes.
Let's see how.
Second.
Yes, unanimous.
Is this gonna be long? I've been waiting for hours.
No, could be,
Sorry.
could be. Half hour, 20 minutes.
Do you need a ride home? You sure?
No, I'm sure. No, I have my truck. It's just that I wanted to speak about I'm a historian and I know
Oh,
a lot
well,
of
okay,
people
all right.
in the field and I know a bit about this.
I thought you needed a ride.
No.
Last meeting I gave John Biata a ride home because Linda was his transportation, so. That's the only reason I asked.
No, I think all of Main Street should become historic district. And I know where they can find some intriguing paperwork for that.
Yeah, from the development American for the citizen. It's all out there, it's, yeah.
that surround them that are like
Yeah,
coffee
it's-
shops,
it's a-
restaurants,
Restaurants and
and all
yes,
that.
exactly.
And that's why they want to come
Exactly,
back.
Virginia, that's exactly the
It has
point.
nothing to do with what your ability is able to do it from home.
They also want to have the people back into the office, so there's interaction between.
Oh, that's what Zoom is for. But I'll tell you, the other thing. But the other thing is that they want young people to be able to be taught more by the older people, and I can understand that.
A simple thing that was on the TV for the news today is they were arguing about dress codes, and there was some guys with T-shirts with emblazoned with different lithographs, or they were in a hat when they were walking into the office with sandals, open-toe sandals, and the whole business of being professional in decor is, to try to get the people to show some,
Well,
what?
I don't know.
Well, that's not the same. They're talking about open toe.
I've been on Zoom calls in my PJs, but hey.
Well, yeah, but it's,
I know it wasn't a business meeting.
yeah, that's a certain thing.
I like to dress up, that's why I go to church.
Well, I always try to look presentable. My wife is, other than when I'm laying around the house in PJs and whatnot, if I go outside the house, she wants me to look presentable. And I don't argue with her.
I don't go out of the house too much. Well, I shouldn't say that. Tomorrow night, where am I? I'm someplace else.
You know, the biggest problem though is for all kinds of businesses is the lack of employees, and they just can't get any of these younger individuals to come and work for them. I talked to Steve, he's the head chef at Sacred Fish House, talked to a couple of other restaurants, trying to get.
There's so many job openings that you can pick and choose. That was not the way when I got out of
No, it
college.
wasn't either.
When I got out of college, out of graduate school, I mean, I still have not finished paying my student loan back. Not because of I paid the schools back. I didn't owe them any money, but I had to have money because
I was lucky, when I got out of the.
I won all of them.
I was on the old GI Bill.
Yeah.
The same one the World War II guys had.
Mm.
So Uncle Sam paid for everything.
Yeah, well, the
And-
problem was I had to pay to go back and forth to, I had to school, which was from here to Amherst. And I also worked, I worked up there as a teacher. I worked down here at Ann's Nursery doing double shifts on the weekends so I could have 36 hours or whatever I needed for insurance, because my son, who is now 51, was diagnosed with diabetes, and I had no insurance on him otherwise. I had insurance on myself for being a student, but.
I'm lucky,
Was
Cynthia, she worked for Aetna, now she's working for United Healthcare, that's their, if not their senior troubleshooter, she's very good. Oh, gosh, she cleans up a lot of messes and everything else.
I used to do that.
And then, so she's got, besides that, she's got 2 pensions and Social Security. I've got my 2 pensions from the Merchant Marine, and then I've also got, the VI, they finally did, because I was exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam, so they gave me 100% disability because of all the problems physically I got. Plus, they had to give me a substantial payback when I first applied for Agent Orange, so, and I get a very substantial amount monthly, so.
Well, my husband was in Vietnam. He was in the ship that would go back and forth along the coastline
Right.
at night, because it would get the information back and forth to the other,
Correct.
which I didn't understand until recently. And
Did
then.
he ever apply for Agent Orange? Because he's available.
He has mesothelioma, and they say, oh, no, there's no say afterwards, and I'm like,
Well, I went through, I must have gone through at least
see, I wouldn't quit.
10 to 13
He
years.
just got so aggravated.
I was fighting like hell. And then finally, for me, I found out that my aircraft carrier, the Shangri-La, was the only combat aircraft carrier that went into Da Nang Harbor. That's inside the 3-mile limit.
Ouch.
Who cares for you?
Knock myself out. Yeah, my husband told me
So-
just recently, they used to go into Da Nang.
He was inside. That legally makes him,
He
got-
should be eligible.
he should be
for-
100%.
And he's gotten zip. Matter of fact, for the longest time, we had to pay them for his medical.
Oh, that's so wrong.
Isn't that awful?
That's so wrong.
And then I finally said,
If he-
look,
if he
we
was-
don't have enough money to pay these bills. I said, I'll put him on regular insurance. I said, it'll be a lot less money and a lot less aggravation. So they gave him, okay, we'll give him, his insurance. You know, he can get, the veterans, oh yeah, wonderful. But, you're gonna have to pay all the other bills you've already incurred.
See, there's the difference, see, when, that was changed when Donald Trump was in office, because he signed the PACT Act. So that's what called Veterans Choice. I have, right now, I gotta go for bladder surgery Wednesday, right? I have Dr. Devaney down in Hungerford doing it. He's the premier urologist.
I love Hartford Healthcare.
All right, so,
It saved my life.
yeah, anyway, the point being is, I talked to Dr. Skittle, who's the VA coordinating urologist down in West Haven, and they wanted me to drive the 52 miles down and back. But first of all, to do the same thing I just had 3 days ago when Dr. Devaney put the camera up my bladder. I said, call Dr. Devaney, he'll send you the pictures. What do I have to come down and have to go through the, well, you know, it was a big whoopie-doo. They wanted me to jump over hoops and.
Oh, my God.
And hurt.
Just for him to go to the, VA up here, he had to go down to West Haven to get a COVID test. I said, you can get one right here at Charlotte.
Go to CVS.
Yeah, well, yeah, at the time, but it was like at that time, there wasn't all these options. I said, so you can get in line like me, who had to go to see the doctor, but I had to have a COVID test.
Has
first.
he got a VA card?
Yes. It's ridiculous. It's like, he
See,
had.
I never have any problem with the actual medical personnel. It's the damn bean counters.
Yes.
The bean counters.
Yes, that's what their problem is.
Oh, yeah,
Just trying to
exactly.
get him anything.
Oh, they'll run you
I
ragged.
can't tell you how many times he's had hearing aids, and they never work. They never work. And so he's finally given up, he doesn't even bother, so I just yell. I mean, we sit this far apart, I yell at him.
Oh, that's just what you say?
Yeah, that's it.
It's, I just had my eyes taken, and they got me new glasses. I get all of my prescription drugs, and I just.
Yeah, he gets it.
Check it off, and they send it to me, and,
Yeah, I send him his.
what's his disability rate? What percentage?
What, as far as his hearing?
No, his overall.
Oh, I don't know what it is. He wouldn't tell me anyways, because I'd just be aggravated. And
Well,
actually, when they found out that he had, prostate cancer, they didn't do it, because they realized that he would have to go every day down to West Haven, and then they decided, and I'm like, and then they did say, okay, that's not right. We could have, Hartford Healthcare do it up here, or, down at the imaging place.
Yes, exactly.
So, I mean.
Yeah, but the thing is, what's getting me is, he should be, all of these things, the heart problem, the diabetes, the prostate,
I have
Yeah.
and they say there's no such thing as asbestitis, and he wasn't diagnosed with that.
That's BS, that's.
It's the same thing.
That's
All those
bullshit.
ships had,
He was in
asbestos.
he worked,
He should be 100%
he
disabled.
worked in the belly of the ship
all
that
agreed to this.
asbestos.
All
He agreed to
asbestos, yes. He should be 100% to say.
He got so angry with them, and he was just yelling, he starts yelling at me, I'm like, no. I am the one that's been driving you back and forth to these things, trying to get you your help. Do not.
See, this, luckily I had.
If Donald
Cynthia.
Trump is back in office, he'll get it done.
Oh, no, he won't.
Oh, he won't?
No, oh, please.
Really?
Please.
Wait a minute. Cynthia, because of what she does with United Health, she, when they wanted me to, well, they're gonna run me all over between Newington and West Haven and everything. She
I
said,
know.
wait a minute, whoa. This is, you got the VA to approve Dr. Devane here in Charlotte Rutherford. This is, you have been consistent working with him on your bladder problem. That's what they call an episode of care. That's the legal term, episode of care. And it continues on until such time Dr. Devaney releases me from his care. Until then, and this is.
The other thing is, I could really wring his neck. He has Medicare and Medicaid. He could just go to Charlotte. Because like, if he hurts his hip or his leg, I drive him down to Charlotte. It doesn't cost us anything.
See, that's why I'm glad.
But you
why
know,
I had
he
Cynthia,
figures,
you know.
he earned this, he should get it.
Of course.
Of course he should. But the thing is, sometimes you have to bug them. Again, I would do it, but you know, but don't yell at me.
Is it pride or something?
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. And
How old is he?
He's older than I am. He's 77.
I'm 74.
Well, yeah, because we were born a year apart at Truesdale Hospital, weren't we?
Oh, in Fall River.
Yes.
Yeah, I forgot about that. You're right. You're right.
That's when we first became buddies.
Yeah.
We were.
Truesdale, babies. Oh my goodness, I forgot about that vision. You're right. But, it's, well, that's why I just, if I was getting very frustrated with the VA, but not the medical people. Medical.
Yeah, they
always
were great. I mean, he
But
finally had surgery on his arm. He had, you know, for years, it was getting worse and worse. And his shirt, he had a growth in his, and they decided, oh yeah, and he did send him to Yale New Haven. No, it's not cancerous and all that. And you know, I think it's his hearing. I think a lot of it's his hearing. He doesn't understand. He doesn't want me to go with him to this thing. And
He's frustrated, and he sounds like he's got, his pride is in.
yeah, I think so. And the thing is, then he comes home and he says, I'm not having it done. I'm like, what? But what finally got to the point where he had to, and then I had to have somebody drive him down
Yeah.
to West Haven to have it done, and then
You
go
know,
back and get him.
You know, all of that traveling you do between Newington and home, and wait a minute, and that West Haven, they have to reimburse you financially for that move, that travel time.
We've never done it.
He's never applied to get the travel.
Probably not.
Oh, my God.
I didn't know about it myself, or I would have done it.
You, absolutely, all you have to do is get signed up, you will, maybe have to renew it every once in a while, but you, are entitled, it's an entitlement as a veteran that they pay for your transportation from your domicile to either Newington or West Haven or to any other.
Oh, my God.
And that includes.
I could wring his neck.
Wait a minute, this includes me, under the approval, going to Charlotte Hungerford to see Dr. Devaney. That's only 7 miles.
I know.
But they have to pay me, and that's a round trip we're talking about. We're talking 29 miles one way to Newington, 52 miles one way to West Haven,
I know.
and 7 miles one way to Charlotte. So they have to pay for a round trip.
So at the VA, they have a computer that you punch that all in, and then a check is sent to you.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Well, the thing is, don't talk to the computer.
No, it's a kiosk, just like
Oh,
when you
kiosk.
go to draw draw blood at Quest.
Oh, yeah. The last time I went, it was so funny.
It doesn't talk, you just enter the information.
I have to do it.
They're at all the VAs.
Somebody must do it for me because I keep just.
Well, yeah, you have that, so you go to Newington or you can, all you have to do is ask at the front desk.
Where's
And
the
if you-
travel?
Yeah.
And they'll take you right to it.
Yeah.
Or
We are back from executive session. It is 10:38 PM. Item 15, citizens' comments. Yep. Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Please give your name.
I'm Virginia Schultz-Charette, 78 Wetmore Avenue, Winston. And the reason why I stopped by was because I was very interested in what you were discussing last about 10 Bridge Street and all that, and the historic district thing. As you know, I'm a historian, and I wanted to let you know that there, at the library, because, oops, sorry. At the library, they have, behind locked doors in the genealogy room, fire insurance maps. You can almost build Main Street from what's that, because the person that was the first president of that library was sold fire insurance, so he gave fire insurance maps to them. They not every year. There's a number of gaps, but you can see the building of the New England Knitting Mills, which is 10 Bridge Street. Parts of it had been originally they had bought from person-made horseshoes and things like that. So lots of interesting little tidbits that I think that if you were going to put in a report, you would want to find on there. So that would be a good thing. Other people that would be very helpful for you would be probably Stephen Vale and Janice Roy. They know a great deal about this town, and they've both been members of the Winston Historical Society. Okay. I'm not so sure about the person that's the president of it, how much he knows about it, but those people have been lifelong residents, I believe. And, well, Vale certainly has been. I should know that from Civil War history. And there's a lot of wonderful things that could be done, but I am a little cautious about it. And one of the things, of course, is that if a property is town-owned, it's very difficult to get a grant, because I tried for years. I actually had Linda Senkus from the library, who formerly a head librarian there years ago, when I was chair of the Soldiers Monument, was helping me look for grants. I had John Larson's office looking for grants for Soldiers Monument, and there was nothing to be found. They did look for several weeks, and they said there just isn't anything for a municipal property. So you have to be very careful about how you do these things. I am interested, of course, in the cemeteries being fixed up. I know a person, Bill Hosley, who we've had speak before at the monument and in various other venues. He was one of the founders of the Colt Park. He's into all this sort of thing. He was Wadsworth Athenaeum, all that sort of thing. So he wanted to help us with that, because if the Hollibird monument and the fences were fixed, that would put us on the Amistad. We'd be very easily get on the Amistad Trail and possibly on the Freedom Trail. So I would suggest that we look into these things. But I would like to see the whole of Main Street as being considered as part of the district. Because, you know, the storefronts change all the time, but you look up. That doesn't change, and we have some amazing architecture from one end of the street to the other. And the other thing I'd like to see taken care of is on the where the old railroad is. I think if you had those things that stands that had information about the buildings you're looking across the river at Main Street up, and with a picture of, the old picture of what it looked like and a story about it, that would really be cool. I think that would be wonderful. So anyways, those are just some of the ideas I wanted to share with you. And I wish you the best of luck because I love this town. And I really didn't like Windsor Locks. I lived there over 20 years, so I hope that's not where you're getting your information from. But I know they did do something recently about the Irish canal diggers, so that was a pretty amazing thing that they researched. So, you know, I do keep a lookout on my former hometown where I grew up and hated it there. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia.
Next.
Virginia and I share history. We're both born in the same hospital in my hometown of Fall River, Truesdale Hospital. What, a year apart, I think she said? We were talking about that. I went over the paperwork I've got here, also from the Republican American, the Citizen, and so forth. And I also had a discussion with Mr. LaPointe behind me, and we both agreed that the situation at the time when the vote was taken, that prior to that, the speaking period, the public comment period, there were two, one before and one after. Each one of those was 5 and 10 minutes before it was changed. And we're in agreement with that. I'm gonna go and see Glenn tomorrow, put in for an IOF. I believe I'm 99 and 44% correct. That was the, well, your calculations for 3 minutes, 6 minutes is at this particular point questionable, very questionable. And according to the newspaper reports here I have in hand, and what David and I discussed, we are correct. So again, I think that's that. The only other thing I have is I have not made any misalignment or aligning against any person. I made it clear publicly how I felt and whatnot. The only thing is I would like to know, and I think I have a right to know, is why our second selectman dislikes my lifestyle. So I would demand an explanation at some point, at your convenience. And I don't mean today or tomorrow, at least by the next meeting. Thank you.
Because you're mean.
I'm not mean. I'm truthful.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
David G. LaPointe, 11 Hillside Avenue, Winchester, Connecticut. I'd just like to say, Mr. Mayor, that our new town manager, having been here a little over a year and a half now, going on 2 years, the good selectmen before these selectmen put forward the ordinance for civil service. It was supported bipartisanly by both Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliates. Having known those past commissioners, i.e. Porter Griffin, Dave Villa, present commissioners Fran Delaney, Joe Nichols, and others, this commission has served this town well. So well, as Althea Candy Perez has stated, they do a good job, and they have done a good job for the town, for the town manager, and ultimately the town manager, being the CEO of the town, has a say on whether or not that employee, if they perform correctly, can stay or not after their probationary period or their time on the job, because you are the CEO. But, as you stated, Mr. Town Manager, rightfully so, the Civil Service Commission is a check and balance on the powers to be. That being our charter, a manager's charter, with the consent of the Board of Selectmen. And we have minority status on the Board of Selectmen. That minority status is by state statute. And as you rightfully said, Mr. Town Manager, the Civil Service Commission has been created by a creature of the state legislature, and those laws have to be enforced. So it was with goodwill and with good dedication that all those men and women who serve on the Board of Civil Service has contributed to this town. And you say it's slow. Well, I understand that. We see what trouble Donald Trump got into with doing things fast track with COVID and the vaccine. We see other people who want things like yesterday for today. And the problem is that it serves as a check and balance for nepotism, for political patronage, or cronyism as they call it, and it has been established since the turn of the century, since the Tammany Hall politics of New York and other cities, i.e. Waterbury, Bridgeport, New Haven, and like you said, over 40 communities in the state of Connecticut out of 169 chose to have civil service commissions. I think it is a great disservice for this board to throw it by the wayside and put all power into the town manager's position for that. For a mere, oh, we gotta get this right away. No, we want the best men and women for positions. There's no question in my mind that every person who sits here, every single one, wants the best qualified individuals. Now, will this new person, may it be the town manager, who makes the decision on every employee, give a veteran the 5 points by state statute that that person is to get, or a disabled veteran, 10 points? I know, as a civil service recipient and being hired as a civil servant, I receive those points. So there's going to be men and women who come from military service. I was not wartime, I was peacetime under Ronald Reagan. And still, those veterans who apply for the positions, if they are veterans, when they apply, will not get that benefit by state statute. So I think you're doing a disservice to people who may apply, and instead of, I've seen so much political patriotism in Waterbury and all these cities. And Winston has a terrible history of that. That's why we had this commission created here. And that's why all these good men and women serve on it. So I think you're going to go back to the old political ways. And it's going to be a disheartening thing for me to see it, because I fought against that in Waterbury with Mr. J. Raj and Mayor Bergen. That's where I draw the line. With Mayor Bergen, who was my friend and actually got me my first political patronage job as a young man. And, you know, I've seen how politics can take over a town and then it goes bad. So I think that you're well-intentioned. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I think you need to work with these good men and women who serve on that board. And I think that the town selectmen should reconsider this. I think you're going too fast without, it's like There's no, you know, vision as to what it actually is going to be when you dismantle civil service. And I think that, you know, I appreciate you giving me time. And on another issue, in regards to, you know, well, I just hope that you reconsider, every one of you, because, you know, I sit in the civil service meetings at times, not all of them, and they do a great job, and the town manager can go there. The town manager's secretary can go there and talk to them about what's going on and how we hire people. The chief of police can. You know, Mr. Rollins, he's been there many times. So it does work, and it's not broken. So I hope you reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Moving on to Selectmen's comments and reports. Anyone?
Yes, we had a very successful summer concert last week, and we didn't have any rain. So we're going to pray again this Thursday, and we're going to have the Blue Rhythm Band. A singer is a local Winsted resident, and they've never played before, so we're excited. This Thursday at 7 o'clock.
Anyone else? Just a reminder to all the registered party members, this is caucus week. Democratic Party has their caucus tomorrow night. The Republican Party has their caucus on Thursday night.
Move we adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.